Chad Patterson here with ProView Networks. It's a great place to be seen. We're here for the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race right here in Albuquerque to the top of the mountain. I'm here with Sports Systems, the strongest amateur team in New Mexico and the title sponsor of this event. First to my right is Kip Taylor, winner of the Iron Horse Road Race, the first New Mexican ever to do so, and that's saying something. A long string of fantastic riders from New Mexico, but winner of the Iron Horse Road Race in Durango, Colorado last week. 47 miles over almost 6,000 feet of climbing over some 11,000 foot passes. So Kip Taylor, how do you feel after winning that race, and how did your preparation through the Gila play into that?
It's just been a really good week since, been able to talk to a lot of people that were happy to see the results. So, just awesome to know that there's so many people that like to see our team do good and like to see a performance like that come to the state of New Mexico. It's pretty special, and it feels really awesome to win such a prestigious race like that.
Well, it is really awesome. It is really awesome. Now, you came down from Fort Collins a few years ago, but you've only been racing bikes for 3 years.
Yeah, I was a collegiate runner and turned to cycling about 3 seasons ago, and it's been a really good fit for me. So.
That happens a lot. We're looking forward to a lot more of those New Mexico runners getting on 2 wheels. Well, congratulations, and we look forward to watching it today.
Right on, thanks, Jeff.
All right, Kip. Our next rider is Damian Calvert, the patron of New Mexican cycling. 37 state championships, and now watching his 12-year-old son race today. Damian, what do you feel? How do you feel about today's race?
I think we're feeling good. We got a good team. Obviously some great climbing legs. On the sides of me, and I'll try and do what I can to help them. But I feel like it's a good race for us. This is our hometown. We ride the crest all the time. It's nothing shocking, and I think we have really good odds. Three out of however many make the final break. I'm hoping.
Well, good luck, Damian.
Thanks, Chad.
And to Damian's right, Fortunato Ferrara, the top amateur New Mexican at Tour of the Gila, a fantastic 5th place finish. And that's 5th out of over 120 riders. And 1st place is a silver medalist at the London Olympics. 2nd place is Legion National Champion. And Fortunato's got a day job. So Fortunato, first of all, as an employee at Los Alamos, how do you find time to put in that many miles to be that fast?
You try to squeeze the ride as much as you can. I have a very supportive girlfriend. She's really supportive for my sport, and then Saturday and Sunday are the good days for riding.
Now, you won this race 2 years ago. How do you feel about this year, and how do you feel about these windy conditions?
So the wind is always a factor in New Mexico racing, but this year I'm in the strongest team, as you said, and so there is not just about me. We have a keep races on fire, and so we try to do the best.
All right, Fortunato, good luck to you, man. We look forward to an exciting race.
Thank you.
Chad Patterson for ProView Networks. We'll be back to the action in just a few minutes. Chad Patterson here with ProView Networks. This is Justin Lau. Justin recently 4th place at Collegiate National Championships for the University of Texas, but more importantly, was the winner of last year's edition of the Sandia Crest Road Race. So Justin, now in the 44th edition. Last year you're on the strong team, Sports Systems. You moved down to Austin, now you're flying solo. What are you looking forward to in today's race?
I'm looking forward to some mountains. Down in Austin we have hills, we run on mountains. So that's kind of like I'm a skinny guy, I'm a big climber, and I like to go uphill. So I'm hoping that I can stay with the main pack up to the mountain and then do my thing.
We're looking forward to seeing it. So last year you not only did you win the Sandia Crest, but you won the Santa Fe Hill Fund as well. And you're the overall points leader in New Mexico. So how's that translating to New Mexico? To Texas? How does the New Mexico scene compare?
The Texas scene, it's strong, the Mexico scene's strong. They're just different type of racing. It's a little bit bigger in Texas, a little bit more riders, it's a lot more intense, a lot faster. But there's none like the kind of the endurance aspect you have in Mexico. Mexico's got these straight climbs, it's got longer races. I feel like Texas is a little bit faster, shorter races, a lot of crits. So you don't have the opportunity to really get out there and just do. I'm more of an endurance rider, so just to spend an hour on a climb.
That's great. Well, Justin, we look forward to seeing. Now you're studying geography to get your master's degree.
I got my master's degree right now at University of Texas, and maybe roll into PhD next year.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thanks for coming back to Albuquerque. We really look forward to an exciting race.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Justin Lau, ladies and gentlemen. Chad Patterson with ProView Networks here with David Vaughn for the Ziavello racing team, to which I am a particular, as it's my old colors, brother. But David Vaughn, coming off your Cat 3 win at Tour of the Gila, which is the level just below the pros. How do you feel about this race, brother?
Oh, it's going to be exciting. A lot of climbing all the way through it, and really windy today, so I'm looking forward to staying in the pack and staying out of the wind.
Well, we're glad you came all the way up from Carlsbad. You're down in Carlsbad, is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, but a great cycling scene just cropping up in the last few years down in Carlsbad. And last year you won the Hornetoad Hustle, and of course in Silver City, the Single Peak Challenge, one of the classic mountain bike races in the Southwest. Yeah. So how does that translate from the mountain bike to the road?
There's a big difference in mountain biking and road biking. Pacing in
Hey, Vaughn, good luck to you. We look forward to seeing you next. An exciting race.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you guys for putting this on.
You bet. Chad Patterson with ProView Networks. I'm here with Drew Miller, 3-time winner of Tour of the Gila, and at least 6-time winner of the Sandia Crest Road Race, now in its 44th edition. Yeah. Drew Miller, how do you feel about the field this year, and how do you feel about this race?
Well, it's a great race. Keeps me coming back. The field this year looks pretty big. I saw probably about 40 guys registered. Some years it's been 25 or so. So it should be a real competitive event. Looks like a lot of the same field as Aaron Ryder horse last week.
Right. Another fantastic race there in Durango. So it keeps you coming back to Albuquerque year after year, all the way from Phoenix, the Phoenix area with Landis Truck Cyclery?
Yeah, the club's based out of Phoenix. I'm up in Flag, so it's a little bit shorter of a drive, but it's still about 4.5 hours over, but it's well worth it.
Well, Drew Miller, thank you for coming to Albuquerque. We look forward to an exciting race.
All right, thanks a lot.
Go. Chad Patterson here with Sarah Lowe, winner of the Category 4 Tour of the Gila earlier this year, just a month ago. We're here for the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race. So Sarah, after winning Tour of the Gila and having such a great weekend last weekend in Durango, what are you looking forward to today with the Crest Race?
Riding my bike uphill.
That's what you get to do. That's what you're going to get to do for about 2 hours. Now, how many times have you done this in training?
I've been up the crest once this year, and it's a grind.
It is. It's quite a long ride. But you're with the New Mexico Spokettes, New Mexico's premier women's cycling team. How many teammates do you have in the race?
We have 2 other teammates in the race today. One in the women's 4 and one other one that went to race.
Well, with so much success in women's cycling in New Mexico, how does that make you feel about the future of women's cycling here in the state?
Well, I mean, we've just in the last couple of years we've been able to open up a women's 4 field, which I think brings so many more women in. And the more women who can start cycling, who can get into racing, then they can move up in categories. And I mean, maybe one day we'll be like Arizona and have a separate 3 category. And I think just the more women, I mean, it's intimidating. It can be real scary. And so I think just the more women and the more get into it and the more open and accepting we can be, the better it is.
And that's what the Spokettes are all about, is getting women into the race. And when you say Category 4, that's just the beginner race and women who may be in their first bike race. And you want to make it easier for that to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, and our team does a lot more. I mean, there's only a few of us here, but then we have a lot of women who are mountain biking and triathloning, and which can be less intimidating than the road scene.
Of course. So for the endurance athletes out there in Albuquerque, which is a mecca for endurance sports, how do they become involved with New Mexico Spokettes?
They should probably email somebody.
Okay, no problem.
We have a website.
You have a website?
We do
And now you have a
website.
Facebook page, don't you?
We do have a Facebook page. We have a website.
And all that information is there?
Yeah, it's like www.spokettes.com. That's it.
All right, that's it. Well, Sarah Lowe, good luck today.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
You guys are neutral until you get around the curve onto the actual Greenwich road out there. So you guys are neutral until there. You're following a moto. You guys also have a media car that's going to be in front of your group. Media car is under the control of the moto, so he'll take care of, coordinating that. But there is a car out there, and that's all that's in there. Just I don't think so. All right, guys, we're going to start in 1 minute.
Chad Patterson here along with the JD Healy and our trusty driver David Rice from Sports Systems. You are watching the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race, brought to you by Sports Systems and by Johnny Boards. We're in mile 2. We're going over this is over the overpass of I-40 into Harris Canyon, off the road, up the road already. Kyle Martinez, former University of New Mexico Lobo, and Dr. David Carrier from Rio Grande Dermatology and Sports Systems. 2 of the stronger teams on the stronger riders on the stronger teams already up the road as we enter the village of Carnuel on the outskirts of Albuquerque. It's a windy day, not too cold, not supposed to be too hot, and of course it'll be 20 degrees cooler as we climb to over 10,000 feet today. This race 57 miles and it finishes a mile above the Rio Grande Valley, 10,678 feet all the way to the top of Sandia Crest. Sports Systems with 10 riders in this race, including 3 of the favorites. Damian Calvert, 37-time New Mexico State champion and winner of this race in 2009. Also Fortunato Ferrara, who won this race in 2010 and was the top New Mexican at Tour of the Gila. And additionally, of course, Kip Taylor, only been racing for 3 years after a stellar cross-country career at Colorado State University. Kip Taylor won the Durango Iron Horse Classic last week from Durango to Silverton, Colorado. That race is over 5,500 vertical feet of climbing over 2 mountain passes that reach 11,000 feet. Kip Taylor, surprisingly, the first New Mexican to win that race, considering the illustrious names that have been on these roads in years past. We're now entering the village of Carnuel. Now, from I-40, if you're going by at 80 miles an hour, you don't see a lot of this village, but it's been here since 1763. Carnuel established as a Spanish fort to protect the village of Albuquerque. There was a fortress and a walled plaza, originally referred to as San Miguel de Laredo. So David Carey for Sports Systems, Mountaintop Cycling, along with Kyle Martinez, our early breakaway at the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race. Entering your picture on the right of your screen will be the old Mountain Lodge, one of the old neon sign or Route 66 motels from years gone by. Not currently in business, but this is one of the most popular cycling routes in America, and I myself ride it frequently. Every time I ride by there, I think, there's really not a nice hotel motel closer to Sandia ski area than that one. It might be a fantastic location for somebody to look into. Don't know what the situation is, but definitely a historical landmark here in Tijeras Canyon. This route is very familiar to all of the riders who have raced in Albuquerque for any length of time as the Tuesday, Thursday lunchtime training ride for the gentleman from Sandia Labs and everybody else who shows up. And if you want to learn to race like a man, that's where you can come out here and just get your doors blown off for an hour every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. Unofficially known as the Grim Reaper Ride. The race from Four Hills to Tijeras Canyon, completely unofficial. Not really a race; it's just a training ride. But if you're in it, if you're trying to keep up with the guys at the front, it'll feel like a race to you. And as you can see back behind these two brave adventurers, there's the main field is nowhere in sight, and that is because Mountaintop Sports Systems, the 9 riders for their team, they don't want to pull. And none of the Zia Vela riders, including David Vaughn, they don't want to do any work either. David Vaughn, we interviewed before the race, Category 3 winner of Tour of the Gila. Those of you unfamiliar with American cycling, Category 3 is a step below the riders who usually race Pro-Am. It's a step below Pro-Am. So it'll be a mini Category 3 riders, the tough ones in this field. They have the option to race against the pros this Sunday morning, or they can race against the beginners. They have the option. But David Vaughn won the Category 3 overall at Tour of the Gila, which is a fantastic win for the previously the mountain biker from Carlsbad. Only been racing for a few years. And but is a fantastic off-road rider, winner of the Horny Toad Hustle last year, as well as the Signal Peak Challenge down in Silver City. And of course, Signal Peak, one of the most fantastic mountain bike race events in America. So we'll see more of David Vaughn later. His individual time trial was the only stage of Tour of the Gila in which we could compare him to the Sports System top riders like Ferrara and Calvert and Kip Taylor. But his individual time trial was very close. He would have been top 25 in the open amateur class at Tour of the Gila. And that's the Zia Vela rider. So the team that has missed out on this early move is Scalo in the blue, black, and white. And I have to say sorry to the Scalo riders for not getting in the interview before the race. We will definitely get you at the finish. And we really appreciate them being out here and some of the help that they've done in making this event possible today. We'll see more of them, of course. Scalo, sponsored by the restaurant of the same name in Albuquerque's Nob Hill, just east of the University of New Mexico. Long time supporter of road cycling, on and off road cycling in New Mexico, but really came back on the scene really strong in the last couple of years, and they've got some fantastic riders. Scalo, of course, coached by John Verheuvel, who is racing today. He's 46. He's going to feel young next to Ned Overend. We do have a fantastic field this year for this event. About 40 riders, including 6-time Sandia Crest Road Race winner Drew Miller, who is also one of only 2 riders to ever win Tour of the Gila on 3 occasions. Miller, also 46. a bit of a legend in his own right, in that he won all 3 of those Tours of the Gila as an amateur. Miller rode for the old Saturn team before they went pro in the early 90s to win his first Tour of the Gila, and since then he's just been a rider for Landis, which is the elite amateur team in Arizona, and of course the Arizona riders come to Albuquerque year after year to do this wonderful event. And Miller won Tour of the Gila on 3 occasions, separated by 12 years. So Drew Miller, fantastic to see him at this race. Also here, Ned Overend. We'll see more of Ned later. That's right, 56 years old is Ned. Ned Overend, for those of you new to the sport, Ned Overend was the first world mountain bike champion in 1990, 23 years ago. The first internationally sanctioned world mountain bike championships in Durango, Colorado in 1990. Now, Ned officially retired from pro mountain bike racing in 1996. However, since his retirement, all that Ned has managed to do is win Xterra twice, 2 times Xterra world champion, the U.S. Winter Triathlon National Champion in 2000, 2-time United States Xterra Series champion. In 2011, just 2 years ago, he won the Mount Washington Auto Road Hill Climb, which is the steepest, most difficult hill climb on the East Coast. He won the Bob Cook Mount Evans Hill Climb twice in the 1980s. 6-time Norba National Off-Road Bicycle Association National Champion in the 80s and 90s. Was the 1987 points leader for Norba. Colorado State Road Champion way back 8 years ago when he was just 49. He was the state road champ of Colorado, a place where they race bikes quite a lot. And of course, 2-time winner of the oldest continuously running mountain bike race in the world, the Road Apple Rally in Farmington, New Mexico. So we're excited to have Ned in this race, and we'll point him out to you later. He'll be in the red of Specialized. We're still early in this 57-mile race, almost all of it uphill. There will be a little bit of descending, but we're heading towards the village of Tijeras as we have left Carnwell. Up the Tijeras Canyon. We passed a Dead Man's Curve a few moments ago. The curve in the road that goes beneath I-40. So named from back in the ox cart horseless carriage days when it was sharp enough to cause some difficulty. In the old days, it was La Vuelta de las Cuchillas, the turn of the knives. We're looking at Kyle Martinez and Dr. David Carey. Carey with Rio Grande Dermatology, and has been fantastic this year. Has actually won some races. One of those amateur riders who was good, but this year he's made the step to being great, and we're glad to see it. And that happens. Like our race promoter Randy Corcoran in the 1990s was like myself, good, but he lost 20 pounds and he was great. And he wasn't fat to begin with, but I went from normal to very thin and could suddenly go up hills very fast. And David Carey's done the same thing over the winter, and he's winning some races here in 2012 with Sport Systems. Sport Systems is our title sponsor. They're located near Montgomery, Louisiana, in Albuquerque. Not only are they your Gravity Sports headquarters, but at Sport Systems they sell the full line of road and mountain cycling bicycles and gear. David Carey, winner of the Trifecta Road Race, also known as the Hillsborough Road Race in southern New Mexico earlier this year. I happen to know that event was founded in 1996. How do I know? Because I was there with the New Mexico State Aggies back in the 1990s. Now, in the state of New Mexico, of course, we have a fantastic cross-country running heritage. Great cycling heritage, too, just not as well-known or as well-documented. But in the 1990s, both the University of New Mexico and New Mexico State were among the top collegiate cycling powers in the United States. The University of New Mexico Lobos winning the team time trial in 1994 and 1997 with names like Todd Bauer, Ken Zimmerman, Waz Warsaw, who's a national record holder. Also on those teams were Gareth Jones, Darren Schmidt, Robbie Quinlan, and Desi Brown, another national record holder who was a former Lobo. And New Mexico State, we didn't get the championship, but we were pretty close. For a bunch of guys with no sponsors, we were pretty proud of ourselves. But actually, we did get one national championship in the early 2Ks on the women's side. And also on the women's side for the Lobos, Carolyn Donnelly, a few of her 8 national championships came with the Lobos, along with Janelle Parks, who was the national road champion for the Lobos. Most recent national championship for University of New Mexico, Nina Baum in 2003 was the national collegiate cross-country mountain bike champion. Baum still racing professionally and coaches a lot of the juniors here in the state. We now enter the village of Tijeras. In the northeast part of this town, known as Zamora, there are 2 adobe homes that locals claim are 280 years old. According to written history, European settlement of Tijeras began in 1819. However, just a quarter of a mile south on New Mexico 337, known as the Salt Mission Trail, you'll find the Sandia Ranger Station and the remains of Tijeras Pueblo, built around 1300. There's a short interpretive trail where visitors can see the remains of what once was a small city. The Pueblo was abandoned around 1425 and excavated by the University of New Mexico Department of Anthropology in the 1970s. In 1862, a brigade of Confederate soldiers camped here and took note of the mill powered by the stream, which still runs here in the spring. The riders continue to climb. Our motorcycle referee will be in view again is having a fantastic day out there. We really appreciate Joe, and we appreciate all of our volunteers and the work that they're doing today, bringing this event to Albuquerque and to Bernalillo County for the 44th year. As we've mentioned, athletes come from all over the Southwest and America to compete in this event. So we're approaching the intersection where we'll make a left turn. Actually, we stay on this road, which becomes North 14. We would like to thank Bernalillo County for being here, our Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department, for controlling these intersections. That was a bit dodgy there, but our leaders made their way through. And as you can see, they're battling with, as you'll see in a moment, they're battling with traffic right now. But Dr. David Carey and Kyle Martinez are off to a very comfortable early lead. They've got a long way to go, but we're 7 miles in, 50 to go at the Sandia Crest Road Race. Before the race, we were able to interview Justin Lau, a last year's winner, now at the University of Texas. He was in Albuquerque last season racing for Sport Systems. This year he's flying solo, but Lau having a fantastic season. He was a 4th place at Collegiate National Championships just last month in Ogden, Utah. 2010 winner Fortunato Ferrara rides for Sport Systems. Fortunato was the top finisher at Tour of the Gila this year, top New Mexican in 5th place overall. 2009 winner Damian Calvert, we also were able to interview before the race. Calvert raced the 35-plus class at Tour of the Gila as the road begins to point uphill as we're exiting Tijeras. We'll shortly be passing the village of Hobbies and entering San Antonio. But Calvert won the Mogollon stage, the very steep 11-mile climb, the last 10-mile climb, excuse me, the last 2.5 miles average 11% at Tour of the Gila. That's the opening stage now, Tour of the Gila. We'll look for Calvert, who has won this race just 4 years ago, to make his mark on today's race. Of course, 6-time winner Drew Miller is here. This race is also won in 2005 by an unheralded rider who broke away early on, as these two riders are doing, and had a 9-minute lead when he got to the final 13.6-mile climb. Now, that rider was about 6'5", which is extremely tall for a cyclist, but a lot of power in those legs, and was able to hold on and win the race by just a few seconds over second place. That rider is now the United States professional time trial champion. His name was Tom Zerbel, winner of this race 8 years ago. In 2002, due to fire restrictions, this race was unable to go to the peak, but that time the race was won by Ryan Blickham, one of the last New Mexicans to get a pro contract. It was Blickham, still down in Las Cruces, still riding from time to time. Landis Cyclery Scott Price won this race in 1998. We'll see Landis Cyclery there in the green and white. Drew Miller will be their favorite in this race, but Scott Amundsen is here as well for Landis Cyclery out of Arizona. Todd Gugulski, we mentioned earlier, Coors Light professional, formerly a Santa Fe resident, now called Boulder home. Won this race on 3 occasions, but Gugulski you may recognize from television broadcasts of the Tour de France and other Pro Tour events. Was with Universal Sports for many years, and Gugulski, one of the top cycling commentators in the world, and we always appreciate listening to him. Now, this race does date back to the late 60s, early 70s. There's some controversy as to when the first officially sanctioned organized race was held, and whether it was sometime between 1968 and 1970. We're now entering San Antonio de Padua. San Antonio, New Mexico, one of 2 San Antonios. A lot of cities or villages in New Mexico named after St. Anthony, as St. Anthony, the patron saint of Native Americans. This village was founded in 1819, again, originally as a fortress to protect the village of Carnuel, which is a fortress to protect the village of Albuquerque. This village was built on the ruins of San Antonio Pueblo, which was inhabited in the 13th century. St. Anthony of Padua, of course, was active in Italy in the 13th century. The gravestones in the church here in town date to 1890, and according to local legend, in the 1840s, shortly after the village was founded, St. Anthony appeared when the Pueblo was under siege from the Apache raiders and drove the attackers away. So to thank him, the villagers vowed to dance the Matashine every year, which they do every June 13th, which is the village of San Antonio's feast day. Now, before 1858, what is now the Turquoise Trail, the road at which these racers are powering up at unimaginable speeds right now. Before 1858, this was just a horse trail. The United States Army built an ox cart path to Santa Fe in 1858. Until its expansion, this was just a narrow 2-lane road, but now the Turquoise Trail, New Mexico 14, winds all the way from Tijeras to Santa Fe through some of the most beautiful scenery in the American Southwest. We see David Carey and Kyle Martinez plowing a lonely furrow. The main bunch nowhere in sight. As soon as we're able to, we'll get a time split for you. But it's a few minutes already as the main contenders, the 13.6 mile, 3,800 vertical foot climb that marks the exclamation point of the Sandia Crest road race. Now these racers rolling up a few tourists who came out to watch the race, and this is always my strategy, is to get up the road early. There's the other Michael Espinoza out for a ride up the hill. Smile, Mike, you're on candid camera with the high desert bikes, some of the high desert riders in this race. These riders just out enjoying the Sunday morning here in Bernalillo County. Recently, according to Livability magazine, an online magazine, Albuquerque was rated the #1 city to ride a bike in America. And we can see why, with hundreds of miles of bike paths, including the newly repaved South Bosque Bike Trail. Of course, the Bosque Path, 18 miles all the way from Alameda down to south of Rio Bravo in Albuquerque. And fantastic. And of course the diversion channel trails and all the bike paths throughout town. And then of course the Tramway Boulevard in Albuquerque, one of the most ridden, most popular bike rides in America. Now, we saw as Martinez and Carey passed the tourists, the riders who were out for the fun ride turned around and they couldn't see anybody. They were wondering how far behind the main bunch is as these two guys are going for the glory. Kyle Martinez, everyone's a Lobo. University of New Mexico Lobo now racing for Zia Velo. And Dr. Damian Calvert from Rio Grande Dermatology and Support System Cycling. Now we do have some fans out on the road, including some Scalo fans over on the side. And looks like we've got a motorcycle scooter club out for a Saturday morning ride. And you'll see that a lot. This is, of course, Easy Rider country. And we'll be riding on some of the roads which were used to make that film in 1969, right here on the Turquoise Trail. Turquoise Trail, so named for the turquoise mines, which you'll find farther north in Cerrillos, close to Santa Fe. So we're now entering Cedar Crest. The village of Cedar Crest, founded in the 1920s by Carl Webb, an eccentric tuberculosis patient who had recovered down the hill at Well Country Camp, which was a tuberculosis camp, which was founded here in the early 20th century. And we New Mexicans are familiar with this history, but those of you tuning in from around the world may not be, that New Mexico in the 19th century and early 20th century attracted tuberculosis patients from around the world who came here for the high altitude, the dry air, and the clean living, and were able to recover in many instances. Carl Webb was one of those. He was the postmaster from 1925, and he'd read your palm if you asked him to. But he built his original cabin, which can still be seen here in Cedar Crest. It's still standing. Webb, his tuberculosis was so bad, some days he couldn't get off his front porch. He would just lay there. But if he felt like he could stand up, he would go work on his cabin, and eventually he had an entire ranch. It was said of him that he was too sick to work, so he built himself a business. And Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist Conrad Richter stayed here in Cedar Crest in the summer of 1929 to write the novel Sea of Grass, which was later made into a movie starring Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy, dealing with conflict between ranchers and farmers on the range of the West. As we leave Cedar Crest, we enter Canyoncito, originally Canyoncito de Nuanez, and the history of the East Mountains is a history of small villages, family feuds, and the family that loses the argument has to move up the hill a couple miles, as the Nuanezes did. As late as World War II, local residents claimed to have been able to stand outside in the winter and hear the train whistles from Albuquerque from here in Canyoncito. Into the 1950s, residents here got their water from the acequias, or the irrigation systems, as there's no indoor plumbing, and nearly all of the cooking was done outside in the dome-shaped ovens called hornos, which you can still see in use here in New Mexico in some villages, particularly if you take the Thunder Chicken, the New Mexico rail runner from Albuquerque to Santa Fe, which is a fantastic way to see some New Mexican countryside. You will see some real, currently in use horno ovens. So as we leave Canyoncito, our two leaders crest the climb with a huge lead. Here in a moment, we're going to pull off and see what that lead is. As we leave Canyoncito, we enter San Antonito, Little St. Anthony's. It was the result of a feud between some families in nearby San Antonio de Padua, which we rode through at the beginning of the climb. In the 1840s, a few families left San Antonio and moved 5 miles to the north to found their own village, San Antonito. Again, we'd like to thank our driver, David Rice from Sports Systems, for driving our car today. We're going to pull off right now and see if we can get a split time for our two leaders here at the Triangle Shell. That's David Carey and Kyle Martinez. And now we wait. Now what we'll see as the main bunch comes through, since we haven't seen them since about mile 2, when our two leaders broke away, we'll see a reduced field as a few riders will go out the back on mailbox. Now, some of those riders they'll spend the next 10 to 15 miles struggling to get back on the back of the main bunch. In the sport of cycling, it's all about drafting, and if you're in that main field on the flat roads, you're working a lot, you're using a lot less energy than the riders at the front, or if you're out there by yourself. So these riders who do get dropped, they're going to be desperate to get back on. It'll be interesting to see what happens at the front, because the pace up mailbox will have been very high. I don't know if there'll be many attacks. If there are, they should come from Scalo, the blue, black, and white of Scalo Veloce, who are not in the lead breakaway. So I'll quit yapping for a few minutes, and we will be right back. This is ProView Networks, a great place to be seen. Welcome back. You are watching a ProView Networks. It's a great place to be seen. This is the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race, brought to you by Sports Systems. Now we're coming along the main field as they pass through San Antonito. In the background, you will see the church dating from 1898 and the original schoolhouse here in town. Our main bunch trails by 5 minutes and 42 seconds. That's a huge gap early on in this race after the first climb. Now you will see the main bunch of nearly 40 riders has lost a couple out of the back. Those riders off the back will be struggling to get back in this main bunch, because as you can see, the main bunch coasting as we start down this hill. And we head down towards Golden on New Mexico 14. At the front on the climb, we saw Scalo Veloce, the black, blue, and white of the Scalo team. That was 46 years old, John Verheuel. And don't let that age fool you. He was the winner of the Criterium race at the Adoption Exchange Classic back in April, was John Verheuel. Here comes the attacks from Scalo, and we'll see these coming thick and fast as they try to establish a counterattack, because they missed this breakaway. Kyle Martinez and Dr. David Carey have nearly a 6-minute lead on this main bunch. That's the tall figure of Verheuel in the front on the left. Verheuel, a New England transplant to New Mexico about 10 years ago, and he is an attorney in Albuquerque. He does water rights, but he's also the head honcho at JBV Coaching, and really one of the elite coaches here in New Mexico. Coaching riders like New Mexico cyclocross champion Ryan Travelstead, Earl Gage of Monzano High School, who was winner of the Cat 4 Gila Monster Road Race earlier this year, and Sarah Lowe, who we interviewed before the women's race, who won the Cat 4s in the beginner class or the Category 3 and 4 women's class at Tour of the Gila. So we're now entering Sandia Park, and this road will be gradually downhill with a few little bumps in the road, until we make the right turn off of New Mexico 14 and head towards Heartbreak Hill, our next major obstacle in this course, one of the steepest paved roads in the state of New Mexico. Heartbreak Hill averaging 17% for about a mile, with pitches at about 20%, and we'll be seeing that road in just a moment. So we'll turn right onto New Mexico 344 in a few miles as we enter the Pinyon Forest, and the buildings that you will see on the side of the road. We're entering the Paco area, Paco Ridge Golf Course out here, of course, in the Paco community. A great place to live for 700 years. The original Paco Pueblo, established in the 13th century. Sandia Park was also the home to lumber tycoon Leonard Skinner. No, not the band, Leonard Skinner, but Leonard Skinner, who set up a sawmill in the 1870s and spent $1 million of his own money to build the road to the top of Sandia Peak about 100 years ago. Skinner had hoped to use the road for logging purposes, but with the creation of the Cibola National Forest, his entire investment was lost. But the road remains, and we'll be returning to that in about an hour for the race to the top. Now, when you see that main field spread all the way across the road, this is how our two leaders got that lead of a nearly 6 minutes. There on the right, taking a drink, Silvio Meneses, the race promoter of the Adoption Exchange Classic, which is held in early April, the New Mexico's last tune-up before the Tour of the Gila. That's a fantastic race, and that road race starts and finishes at Paco. Of course, Paco, P-A-A-K-O in English, means a root of the cottonwood tree. A Tano Pueblo occupied between the 1300s and the 1600s. And if you think this might be a place you'd enjoy living, feel free to come on, check it out. There are homes available from the low $500,000s in the Paco community. There's the colors of the University of New Mexico right on the front. Everyone's a Lobo. Having a chat with some Ziavella riders now. Interesting to see Ziavella on the front since they do have Martinez up the road. Maybe they're trying to form a counterattack. No, Berger, a bigger rider, and you see when he pulls off like that, that means the guy behind him doesn't want to pull through. And of course, Sport Systems, they're not going to do anything. They've got 9 guys in that field, and they're all saving their calories, so they don't want to burn any joules until they get to the final climb. That's why they sent Dr. David Carey up the road as a sacrificial lamb, if you will, almost. Because if they've got a rider up there, they can say, hey, you know, it's up to you to do all the work in this wind, on this windy day. The wind out of the east, unusually. Typically, we have a west wind in New Mexico. But once we get up Heartbreak Hill, if the crosswinds are strong, that could make for a very difficult race before we even get to the final climb, because those crosswinds will really shatter this field. Now, the Paco community, to the right of your screen is the Paco community where the original Pueblo is located. And now, of course, one of the, probably the most elite public golf course in New Mexico, one of them, with all due respect to Into the Mountain Gods in Ruidoso. But to the left of your screen was the old Campbell Ranch, which was in operation, still in operation. And you can see the ruins if you drive at this stretch of road, some old corrals and pens from the Campbell Ranch, which was in operation here since Homestead days. So off to the right of your screen, we can see the east side of the Sandia Mountains, which are of course covered in a forest. We'll be climbing to the very top of those, 10,678 feet. This Sandia Crest road race, 57 miles in length, which is one of the features that makes it unique in American cycling. There are hill climbs that go higher and have a higher net elevation gain, but they're shorter. They're typically straight up the hill, as with the Mount Evans Bob Cook Memorial Hill climb in Colorado, which goes from 7,000 to 14,000 feet, but it's 28 miles straight up the hill. Same thing with the Mount Washington Auto Road Hill climb on the East Coast, and even the Santa Fe Hill climb, which is another monument of American cycling, from Fort Marcy in Santa Fe straight up to the ski area. But this race adds some mileage, really adds about 30 miles and some very significant climbing. We already made it up to the mailbox climb, which was our first major obstacle of the day. Now these riders are getting a little bit of a break. You can see the riders taking this opportunity to eat and drink as much as they can for this race, which will take about 3 hours for the winners, 3.5 for the guys at the back. As they're passing through your screen, a gentleman out for a scooter ride on a beautiful Saturday morning. These roads are open. The way this works is the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department assists us with traffic control. And so the traffic is allowed to pass these riders in a controlled fashion. But as you can see, there is oncoming traffic, and that's why in American cycling we have what's called the yellow line rule. And in the state of New Mexico, we are very serious, and you will be thrown out of a race if you violate that, because we don't want anyone to die. I really hate going to memorial races named after riders who got hit by cars, and that's what we don't want. So the riders are restricted to the right-hand side of the lane, and are not allowed to cross over that yellow line without being penalized, or if for egregious violations, they'll be disqualified from the race. So you can see from the casual nature of the race, Sport Systems, of course, has no interest in chasing at all. They have 3 favorites and to win the race, and they're all just going to sit there and say, okay, it's up to you guys to chase down our leaders, who are Kyle Martinez and Dr. David Carey. Lurking at the back of the field in the green and white, the diminutive figure of a Drew Miller, 6-time winner of this race, now in his 40s. The bright red jersey will be 56-year-old Ned Overend, the first mountain bike world champion of all time back in 1990. Now this climb we're coming up now, this is the finish to the Adoption Exchange Classic road race, which is held in April. So these riders will have some memories of this particular road. the tall figure in the back. Well, the bright orange and black that you see, that's Crazy Cat Cyclery from El Paso, who also do a fantastic job. With the very tall figure on the left in the darker colors with the orange, that's the University of Texas Longhorns, and that's Justin Lau, last year's winner. 6'4", only 150 pounds. I was 6'3" and 165 when I was racing, and I had no idea how I could possibly like lose any weight because I was already at like 4% body fat. So Justin Lau built for going up hills. But 6'4", and that those long legs allow him to also be very stable and very strong in the crosswinds. So what you see now is these riders enjoying a Saturday morning. Again, the Sunday morning, excuse me. Thank you to JD Healy, our doing the camera work today. The CEO of ProView Networks out here on a Sunday morning. But we're doing this to bring you, to really showcase Albuquerque and Bernalillo County, and to bring you this event that's been here since the late 60s, early 70s, in its 44th edition, the Sandia Crest Road Race. The situation is we have 2 leaders with 5 minutes and 42 seconds at the last check, and from the pace of this field, it doesn't look like that gap's going down. Scalo at this point content to sit and take it easy. On the right in the blue and black, that's Nick Limke for Scalo Veloce, research scientist in Albuquerque. Nick was in the top third at Tour of the Gila for Scalo. The Scalo rider about 2 or 3 rows back with the beard, that's Thomas Jones. He's been in the top 10 here before. Over on the right, Drew Miller. And again, from our vantage point, we can hear some chatter between the riders. That's what happens, you know. The climb up to mailbox is very difficult, even though they didn't go like super fast because they're all still together. It's never easy. And there's not a lot of chit-chat going on, but at this point, all these riders, again, this is the elite men's field, and so they've all earned the right to be here. You have to have won some races to even be be racing at this level. And they know the situation. We got the breakaway. Scalo at this point content to let them go. And in the back of all of their minds is Heartbreak Hill, which is coming up in a few minutes, which we will get to see some pain and suffering. They say no pain, no gain, no guts, no glory. We'll see all of that on Heartbreak Hill in a few moments. The most painful mile in New Mexican cycling. We are on North New Mexico Highway 14, and again, this is just a fantastic panorama. Appears behind these cyclists, and that's one thing I have to say for the sport of cycling. I love baseball. I announce baseball. I love track and field. I love football. I love basketball, but nobody gets a stadium like this one. As we see some high desert bikes riders up at the front. You know, Eugene Doherty is in this race for high desert bikes, and I apologize to some of these riders. I can't see your numbers, and I can't. When everybody has the same helmet, you kind of look the same sometimes. But you see the shake of the head. That particular rider is not particularly excited. But Ned Overend, 56 years old, right there in the middle in the bright red jersey, 6-time national mountain bike champion, the first mountain bike world champion of all time, and still one of the fastest riders in the field at 56 years old, and also 2-time World Xterra champion after he retired from cycling. But for high desert bikes, it does have Eugene Doherty in this race. Also Gavin Kinnard for high desert. High desert located up off of Paseo del Norte, close to Louisiana, I want to say. It's next to the Chick-fil-A if you're in Albuquerque. Off of Paseo del Norte is a High Desert Bikes, another great bike shop. And we saw, actually, the tourists that we saw riding were wearing their High Desert jerseys. And High Desert, with a Masters only racing team, they're all in their 40s or older. And they do a great job. Travis Dixon, not here today, but he sometimes races for High Desert, and he's one of the top riders in New Mexico. As we see the east slope of the Sandia Mountains rise in the background. There at the foot of the hills, you see the Paco Ridge Golf Course and the Paco community, as these riders are 12 miles up Sandia of South 14. That means we are 19 miles into the 57-mile race. 38 miles to go, and did we mention the last 14 are all uphill? This race finishing at 10,678 feet, 2 miles above sea level. We also want to recognize our riders who the teams the riders that have come from El Paso. For Team El Paso, Patrick Holland, he'll be in the blue and yellow Team El Paso, but Crazy Cat is in the orange and black, which is a tribute to the old team of Eddie Merckx, the Cannibal, the greatest racing cyclist ever. Marufo Salvador from Juarez, and Juan Oraco, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, from Crazy Cat. Also David Ubinger. So a little bit of action from Scalo here. Wanting to keep the pace fairly high because, while we took our little break to time the breakaway, we had a little discussion here in the car, and Dave, our driver, gives our breakaways a chance. They've got nearly 6 minutes, and I don't think that gap's not going down now for sure to Martinez and Carey. And if they have that time going into the climb, they're both Albuquerque guys. They've done the climb before many times. And again, it has happened before, most famously in 2005. When Tom Zerbel took that 9-minute overall lead into the final climb and was able to hold on for overall victory. But to Scalo, since they missed that breakaway, they want to keep that the pace from the gap from getting too high. Now, if you're Scalo, you got 4 or 5 riders, and we spoke with them before the race, along with Sport Systems and Ziavello, and their strategy today is what they want to do is get a climber and a non-climber into a breakaway before the Crest Road. Now, what that will do is allow the non-climber, the stockier guy, will do all of the hard work leading to the climb, and that'll save the legs of their climbing specialist for the last 14 miles. So sitting on the front, doing a turn like this will just keep that front, the gap to the leaders down. But expect this field to just blow apart on Heartbreak Hill, because the thing about Heartbreak is there's no descent afterwards. It's very steep, and you get to the top, and it just kind of flattens out. I mean, there's might be a little, a little downhill, but it's not like a fast descent at all. You don't go down the other side of the hill. It's flat and windy, and that means it's going to break up into little groups, and Scalo's going to have to get as many guys as they can in that front group and just drive it and bring that breakaway back. But Sport Systems and Ziavello, of course, right where they want to be. Sport Systems with 10 riders in the race. They've got Dave Carey in the breakaway with nearly a 6-minute lead. But their issue is that they've got to figure out how they're going to deal with Justin Lau, Drew Miller, and Ned Overend coming into this race, especially Lau. 4th place, we see him there on the right in the black with the white and orange of the University of Texas. Lau, 4th place overall at Collegiate National Championships in Ogden, Utah, earlier this month. Last year's winner was Justin Lau of the Sandia Crest Road Race. Now, we're sorry to lose him to Texas, as he's a graduate student at the University of Texas at Austin studying geography. They're in 4th position. We see Damian Calvert, 37 New Mexican National Championships in various disciplines. Mountain bike cross country, mountain bike short track. There's Drew Miller, and as Bob Desenfant, former national champion and New Mexico State chemistry professor, used to say, the dorsal fins are starting to break the surface of the water as we see Drew Miller come to the front. Now, riders like Miller and Calvert and John Verheuel right on their wheel. They want, if you see one of those guys go to the front, you want to be there, but they want to be at the front for the start of Heartbreak. Because when you make that right turn, it's just about a mile. It's going to be about a mile to the start of the climb. And if you're at the back, for one thing, you're giving away about 10, 15 seconds to the guys at the front of the group at the start of the climb. And then you have to go around all the people in front of you who sometimes maybe they're weaving, maybe they get in your way, because everybody's under so much pressure. So if you're at the front, there's just less to deal with. All your rivals are right there. And this is what Lance Armstrong in his day was so good at. Not only did he have the ability in the Tour de France and the fantastic physical abilities that he had, regardless of what else might have been going into that. But he along with all of his competitors was born with fantastic natural ability. But what made Lance different from many other riders was not just you can't buy the ability to stay at the front of the field the whole time, and that's an athletic ability that many cyclists struggle with, because you have to be able to be vigilant at the front and be able to maintain your position. Speaking of Lance Armstrong, recently coming out, of course, we saw him on Oprah earlier this year, where, I certainly don't want to make any controversial statements on ProView Networks regarding Lance at all. We appreciate what he's done for Tour of the Gila, for the state of New Mexico, and for cycling here. And there's 2 sides to everybody's coin, and we hope that moving forward, everyone in the cycling community can move towards truth and reconciliation, which is what Armstrong has been calling for with the UCI, and keeping this race going forward. And it is fantastic. There's no other sport like this in the world, and I love running. Don't get me wrong. I love cross country. I love calling cross country events. It's just you can't go quite as fast or quite as far, and you can't do it as many days in a row. And you don't get to see quite as much of this fantastic scenery as we're enjoying here. This is, once again, Easy Rider country. We're here on North 14. We're going to turn before we get to the ghost town of Golden. But right before Golden, we'll turn on the 337. We're just about a mile away from the turn now. Golden, New Mexico. So named for gold, which was discovered there in the 1820s, actually, 2 decades before Sutter's Mill in California, the original Western gold rush. Unfortunately, depending on your point of view, the Golden Gold Rush did not last very long, but there was mining activity and a town and a post office into the 20th century. As there was a great deal of mining activity in the 19th century in Golden, New Mexico. Past Golden, you ride into the town of Madrid on your way to Santa Fe. And it's not Madrid if you're from out of state. It's pronounced Madrid here in New Mexico. And, of course, more recently made famous by the movie Wild Hogs. But was used in the filming of Easy Rider back in the late 60s, early 70s. The really iconic, truly iconic motorcycle movie of all time, starring, it's not Henry Fonda, it's Peter Fonda. Thank you to David Rice, our driver, for helping me out with that. And of course, yeah, I didn't put this in my notes because we didn't go through Madrid, but the other guy, God rest his soul, who we just lost, and of course, well, all those great actors from the 60s. We'll come back to that in a moment. We'll have our information people looking on that, which will be my smartphone in a moment. I'll look those up. Jack Nicholson, of course, in Easy Rider in an early role. But these guys get an easy ride. There's Marcel Berger, Silvio Meneses, Chris Eckstein on the front. Dennis Hopper, thank you again to David Rice. Dennis Hopper, Jack Nicholson, and Peter Fonda in Easy Rider in the late 60s, early 70s. If you haven't seen it, you need to get that one on your chosen delivery method for movies. We see again the riders taking it easy here, and they know they got the breakaway up the road. So if your sports system's in Zia Vela, you don't want to do anything. And Scala content to just kind of cruise along right now because they know they're going to make this right turn, and they're going to have to die 10,000 deaths, as we say in this sport, for about a mile on one of the steepest main road climbs in New Mexico. And from the front seat, we can see it come into view, and it's just the riders can see it as well, and it's a sight to behold. Just cut straight into the side of a mountain as it climbs up from here in the valley up to the Estancia Valley, just straight into the side up to the plateau there. It's a mile, averaging about 16 to 17%, with pitches over 20%. And just a little spike in the legs so early in the race that no one will win the race on Heartbreak Hill, but some riders might lose it if they're unable to stay in the front group going over the top of the climb. New Mexico 14, the Turquoise Trail, after Golden in Madrid, where, by the way, the Sandia Crest road race used to start in its early editions in the 1970s. The race would start in Madrid and race up to the crest, which was interesting, and it might be interesting to do that again in some edition. That would be fantastic because there's a very steep climb coming out of Madrid. After Madrid, you go through the village of Cerrillos, which is still has the only paved road through Cerrillos is New Mexico 14, and has some fantastic old buildings that you can see that have been there for over 100 years since its mining days. But Cerrillos mining days date back 1,000 years because it was a Native American turquoise mine, was Cerrillos. And then, of course, you cruise right in past La Tuna, one of the most notorious prisons in New Mexico history, to Santa Fe, the state capital. So Turquoise Trail taking you from Albuquerque to Santa Fe, the highway. And a integral part of the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race right here on ProView Networks. It is a great place to be seen, and it's also a great place to see some fantastic scenery, and we're going to see more and more action. We're about to see this main field explode here in about a mile as we're approaching the turnoff to Highway 344. Now the riders can see it, and if you're Justin Lau or Drew Miller, you get a little spike of adrenaline. If you're everybody else in the field, you get a lump in your throat and just hope you can make it to the top without being off the back. The riders have made the turn off of the Turquoise Trail. And we are now on New Mexico Route 344, about a mile from what's known as Heartbreak Hill. And it is spectacular, I can tell you. And please forgive me in advance if I speak too much about myself. It's just me for 3 hours, and there's no one else that I know quite so well. But my first 100-mile ride was the Santa Fe Century, which happens every May for about 30 years now. And this is the bottom end of the Santa Fe Century, and I'd been riding for about 4 weeks. 15 years old, and I got to this climb, and it was like this. Coming from southeast New Mexico, it was like the steepest, most intimidating thing I'd ever seen on a bicycle. And had an interesting conversation with J.D. Healy from ProView Networks about steep climbs last week. And J.D. was doing some road riding on the Pacific Coast Highway, and came up to a similarly steep hill, and it made it all the way to the top. And we talked about the how you have those moments of zen where you don't want to put a foot down, and all you can do is just think about, like, you have to find something to focus on, even if it's a drop of sweat dropping onto your handlebars, and you just think about that and drive with your legs and get up that hill. So what we can see is the main bunch disappearing into the distance. What we're going to do is pull off, and we're going to see them come by, and so that way we can ride up the Heartbreak Hill alongside of the rider, so you can get a sense for how steep it is. Because if we just show the guys in the front, they're going to make it look easy. Not only are they the fastest in the world, but they also train themselves to make it look easy. A whole lot of poker going on at the front of a bicycle race, because you don't want to, like, show your competitors that you're hurting. Or sometimes, as we saw Lance do in the Tour de France versus Jan Ulrich, you want to fake like you're hurting when you're really not. But the guys at the front will make it look easy, but the guys at the back will show you how steep this climb is, and we'll see this main bunch blow apart. Now, parts of it may come back together when we hit the top of the climb, as there are a few flat miles headed back to the base of the Sandia Crest climb, but it's very windy, and that wind is going to keep this main bunch split up into small groups called echelons once we hit the top of this climb and hit that plateau. And here they come, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. This is ProView Networks. It's a great place to be seen. We're bringing you the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race. We're at about the halfway point, the second major obstacle of the day, the Heartbreak Hill on New Mexico 344. You can see Mark Asbenstadt of Landis Cyclery on the front, setting a high pace for his teammate Drew Miller, 6-time winner of this event. And the hills are starting to bite at the back of the field here. This is one of the steepest main road climbs in New Mexico. What we're going to do, we're going to come up from the back of the field and slowly make our way to the front so we can see just how difficult this climb is. It averages over 15%, with pitches over 20%. And again, these riders, every one of them has earned the right to be here. These are the elite riders of the Southwest, from the back all the way to the front. And you can see how much this climb is making these riders suffer. What they're going to be trying to do is just die 10,000 deaths, as we say too many times in the sport of cycling. They're going to put their head down and put the pedal to the metal and just try to make it to the top of this climb. in such a way that they can stay in contact with the main bunch, because they don't want to be out in this wind by themselves. We can see the pace beginning to take its toll with these riders hanging on from dear life. Here's our El Paso riders struggling up the hill, maintaining contact. Silvio Meneses well positioned on the climb, along with the University of New Mexico Lobos. Salvador Marufo from Juarez and Crazy Cat Cyclery. Chris Schleback from Silver City, New Mexico, giving it everything he's got. A finisher in the Open Amateur class at Tour of the Gila. Wearing number 13, Travis Gleason from Flagstaff, lucky number 13. Chris Abbott, winner of a race earlier this year, along with John Verheuvel and Scott Veloce, giving it everything they've got. Marcel Berger. There on the front, it's Nick Limke. Now we're coming up to the top 10. Santiago Chavez from El Paso and a Ziavello, Category 1 rider with a real job. And that's saying something, ladies and gentlemen. Ned Overend, 56 years old, the world's first world mountain bike champion. Here in the top 10, there's a David Vaughn from Ziavello looking comfortable on the wheel of Fortunato Ferrara. Last year's winner, Travis Lau from the University of Texas. Keeping these two leaders in sight, our two leaders from the main bunch. This is a 6-time winner, Drew Miller, in a second position, and he is right on the wheel of Kip Taylor. Kip Taylor for Sports Systems, a mountaintop cycling winner of the Iron Horse Road Race, and he is showing the field a clean set of heels. Kip Taylor going to be third over the climb, not going to pick up the preem, but he's going to feel really good about that performance on Heartbreak Hill. And that is fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. Kip Taylor looking very comfortable, still with a long way to go to the finish. But what that's going to do is Taylor is going to get to the top. He's going to turn around, and he's going to say, yeah, no problem. You know, I'm going to, get a drink of water, eat something, and wait for the main bunch to come up. Now, that whole field of riders is not going to be together. It's going to be windy here at the top, and we're going to see the elite group congeal. And it looks like it might be this group of 10. If Santiago Chavez can make it, that'll be 2 Ziavello riders in the lead group. There for Sports Systems, we see that's a Damian Calvert looking to his right in the middle. Fortunato Ferrara to the right of your screen. Of course, Kip Taylor is still waiting on the bunch to come up. Drew Miller right there. His teammate Osmondstott put him in the right position. From New Mexico Bike and Sport, that's Cameron Brennaman, another fantastic climber. Brennaman peeking in and out from the back of the field there in the orange, blue, and white of New Mexico Bike and Sport, based out of Santa Fe. Justin Lau on the front. He's last year's winner, the 6'4" form of Lau. David Vaughn, the Cat 3 mountain biker, is right in this elite group. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be our chasing group. There may be a few riders who are able to reconnect with this bunch, but that's our elite group for the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race. Now, what we're going to do is cruise on back up to our breakaway and see how Kyle Martinez and Dr. David Carey are getting along. Now, at this time, David Rice cruising about 50 down the highway, and you can see we're not easily dropping that group of 10, meaning they're cruising along about 35, 40 after that climb that they just did. And again, it's slightly downhill, but it's not really a descent. You're still definitely pedaling at this point. And once they get out of this Pinyon Forest that we're in, the crosswind, the wind actually coming from the east this morning, which is unusual in New Mexico. But that's definitely going to have an effect now. Those 10 elite riders in the front, they now know they're the ones with the horsepower, as Ned Overend also made that group. They're the ones with the horsepower to win the race. So the guys from behind may be able to regain contact, but they're going to really, if they do, all they're going to do is sit in until they get to the finish and try to do that. It's not easy, especially on a windy day such as today, because when the wind comes from the side, the riders will line up from the rider's perspective, from the left to the right, all the way across the road. Well, when you get all the way to the side of the road, well, there's no more draft, because when the wind's from the side, the cyclist wants to draft off the rider in front of him to conserve energy. That means, you can find a spot where you're not, you're sheltered from the wind, and that wind is the main factor that slows you down on a flat road. So once you run out of, there's no more room to be behind and to the side of the rider in front of you, well, then it just lines out into the gutter. And and either a smart rider will open another echelon, and other riders will just get dropped. So you're watching ProView Networks. It's a great place to be seen. We're bringing you the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race, brought to you by Sports Systems and by Johnny Boards. What you just saw was the main bunch tackle Heartbreak Hill. We're back up to our leaders, who have about a good 6 minutes on the main bunch. Dr. David Carey with a smile and a thumbs up. University of New Mexico Lobo, Kyle Martinez gritting his teeth on his wheel. Martinez looks over his shoulder, but there is no one in sight, as it took us quite a while to get up to these leaders. And will these two brave souls be able to hang on and tackle the Sandia Crest Road Race? Now, as we're on New Mexico 344, we're now turning back towards the west, and the wind is now out of the east, so these riders will pick up a bit of a tailwind, which will help them. Now, the thing is, these riders are doing a fantastic ride. They're the heroes of the day no matter what happens, but will they have enough energy when they get to the 14-mile climb to hold off the chasers? Now, what we saw as we left the main bunch was that we had a group of about 10 who were chasing. And we're told Dr. David Carey picked up the King of the Mountain in the $100 at the top of Heartbreak Hill. Dr. Carey in Rio Grande Dermatology, obviously in dire need of that $100 is Dr. Carey. You can tell by the bike that he rides, and of course he picks that up at Sports Systems. That's where my wife and I bought her Specialized. So at Sports Systems on Montgomery, Louisiana. There in Albuquerque. Not only your gravity sports specialist, but you are the place to go for all of your cycling needs, from beginner to elite, on and off-road, uphill, downhill, everything in between. And they do have a dedicated women's cycling area, which is fantastic, with staff who are trained for to fit cyclists, fit female cyclists to the right bike and the right equipment, which is can be difficult to find when you go to a bike shop. But we are blessed with some fantastic bike shops here in Albuquerque. Again, voted the best place in America to ride a bike. On an online magazine recently. We're now coming into the outskirts of Cedar Grove, a small farming and ranching community in the foothills of the Sandia Mountains. Now, the area that you'll be able to see behind you, that's the Estancia Valley, which contains Moriarty, home of the Moriarty Record Challenge time trial, which goes on every Labor Day here in New Mexico. The fastest 40K time trial you'll ever do in your life, 6,000 feet, flat as a pancake, and that's where the both men's and women's records were set. The women's record of around 51 minutes by Mari Holden, more recently more famous for being the girlfriend of Barry Bonds. But Mari Holden set that record in 1995. How do I know? I was there. Sorry to admit that she actually passed me, and I was a pretty fast Cat 3 at the time. I thought 55 was good for 40K, but Mari Holden, 51 minutes. And Albuquerque's John Frye set the national 40K record of 47 minutes and 34 seconds in 1991. That record has stood for 22 years. John Frye now 55. Not out at the race today, but Frye, former world record holder, had the world amateur hour record, which is how far you can ride a bike in an hour on a velodrome, and he set that record in 1991 as well. And beat the record. The previous record was held by Vyacheslav Ekimov, a 1988 gold medalist for the Soviet Union and a long-time professional for the United States Postal Service. So Frye beat that record. In the 70s, 80s, and even early 90s, not a lot of opportunities to turn professional in the sport of cycling for a long time, really, until just a few years ago. Only one Pro Tour team was based in America. It was a 7-Eleven, then Motorola. So looking all the way back down New Mexico 344, we still can't see the chasers. So these two leaders with an enormous lead on the main bunch, will they be able to hold it off for the final 13.6 mile climb to 10,678 feet, Sandia Crest? That's Kyle Martinez on the left in the red and yellow of Ziavello. and Dr. David Carey in the red, black, and white of Support Systems. You can see them having a little conversation. Now, when you get out like this, is the sport of cycling, in my opinion, every American diplomat should be forced to race bikes for a couple years, because your enemies are your best friends, and your best friends are your worst enemies. These two riders on separate teams, but they need each other to get to the finish line. In fact, we're told Carey had a pretty good gap at the top of Heartbreak Hill, but it would be foolish for him to go on alone that far from the base of the climb in this wind, which is now coming from the rider's left. And so what you'll see is the rider on the front now Dr. Carey he'll be on the front for about a minute or so with just two riders, and he'll work hard. While he's working that hard, you can see Martinez not directly behind him, behind and to the right. That's the sweet spot. That's the spot where he's protected from the wind. Now Carey will pull off and ease up a little bit, and Martinez will pull through, and it'll be his turn to take a turn at the front. But now the thing now is that Martinez knows that Carey is stronger than he is from the climb, so Kyle may be less willing to work as hard. But it depends. Both of these riders at this point, they know each other. They're out on the training rides in Albuquerque, and they know they're the pirates. They're the bandits. They're trying to steal a pot of gold from the guys who are supposed to win. All the guys that we interviewed before the race, which wasn't either one of these guys. And if they can get a big enough lead before that climb, they can do it. As we're now into Cedar Grove. And we get a little bit of competition here on the right from some local cycling fans. And I'll refer you all to the early Kevin Costner film, American Flyers, for a little conversation about training with dogs. If you want some motivation to get a little bit faster in your sprinting, just find a loose dog in the neighborhood and ride by about 10 times a day. But so the riders now facing south. That means they're now in a block headwind, and you can see Carey crouched low over those handlebars, and it'll continue this way for a few miles, and they'll once again turn west onto Frost Road, which will take them right up back to the Triangle in San Antonio, Sandia Park, and that'll be the base of the 13.6 mile climb to Sandia Crest. Now the area to the right of your screen is the expansive Estancia Valley, and most of this area to the east of the road that we're now on is the King Ranch, of course, and that is the still operating cattle ranch of four-time New Mexico Governor Bruce King and current Attorney General.
We're about 5 car lengths.
The smaller Martinez now in the front for Ziovello, the former Lobo. And you can see Martinez quite a bit smaller than Carey. And that can make it difficult. It's hard to, it's like drafting off a Kleenex sometimes with if you're a big guy behind a smaller rider. But Carey with a greater muscle mass will be typically more suited to the flatter roads. And interesting to see all of these riders with, approximately 5% body fat right now if they're racing at this level. But just the different body types can accomplish different things on a bicycle. Carey, obviously, with the heart and lungs, and he's been putting the time in, really always had the power, did Dr. Carey, but lost some weight this year. And it's not like it was fat to begin with. He just, went on the crash diet, or the 400 miles a week diet, whatever you want to call it, and lost a couple pounds and got a lot faster. And but he's still got the power in those legs, and especially on these the muscle mass will increase. He'll have a greater power output for these flat roads. Martinez, the smaller rider, typically will be a better climber, all things being equal, just by being lighter. But both of these guys obviously in fantastic shape. Martinez is a new Cat 3, and those of you unfamiliar with the sport of cycling in the United States, when you start off, if you do your first bike race, which we had a great turnout for that today, you're a Category 5 rider, a beginner, and you work your way up by Category 5 for the men, Category 4 for the women, and you work your way up by getting results in races. And after doing about 10 races or so, you'll be a Category 4, and if you get some results, you're a Category 3. And when you reach the Category 3 level, you're for real. Still kind of weekend warrior. It's about the highest level most people can maintain with a job and a family. There are you'll see a few Pro-Am riders or I guess the amateur side. If the pro side you're getting paid, then it's all good. But if you're a top-level amateur, well, such as Damian Calvert, Fortunato Ferrara, most of the riders in this field, the time commitment is just so all-consuming to be at that elite level of an athlete and also have a job and also have time for your family, that it takes really total commitment by your entire family to accomplish that. Calvert, of course, his son Mason is racing today, his first Sandia Crest road race, 12 years old, and goes to school there in Albuquerque. Mason, I think, was right up there at the Adoption Exchange Classic in the juniors. But those of you out there, I can't tell you. Correct. We're now making the right turn on the Frost Road. Can't tell you how fantastic it is to see Damian Calvert at Tour de Gila racing at an elite level, and his 12-year-old kid Mason Calvert being able to see him, you know, and the sport of cycling, one of the only sports where a father and son can actually go race together in the same event. If you're at the right level, perhaps golf you can do that, but it's hard to have a father and son at an elite level playing basketball or baseball or football, because it's just so hard on the body. The sport of cycling, one of the things that differentiates it from running really is running is fantastic. I love it. In New Mexico, we have the great running tradition, but it does take its toll on your knees and your feet. And you know, in the frame, but cycling is so easy on the joints that you can really do it. As we see Ned Over, and he's 56, and he's still racing at the elite level, and is made the elite selection on Heartbreak Hill today. So our riders are now turned on to Frost Road, and they see before them a long, straight road leading to the base of Sandia Peak. They can see the peak from where they're at, looming above the Estancia Valley, 10,678 feet. Come back up to our main bunch and watch the chase for a while, and then we'll move back up to our leaders, who have over an 8-minute lead on the chasing group. Now, what happens after a climb like Heartbreak? We had our lead group of 10, and they all know who's strong. But again, the Zia Velo riders and the Sport System riders, they have no interest in chasing. So the other individuals obviously didn't drive it that hard. And what happens if you're one of the riders who did get dropped and is a little bit off the back, you want to try, you're going to give it everything you've got to get back in that bunch, because you don't want to make it to, you don't want to do this whole ride on your own. That's not the fun part of cycling. So the first riders who will enter your screen, it's Silvio Meneses, struggling to regain contact with the main bunch after the Heartbreak Hill. Juan Rocco from Crazy Cat Cyclery in there as well. Now, again, Silvio in his 40s, 49 years old is Silvio, still out here racing with the studs. He could anybody could race with the 3s, 4s, you know, and you could like downgrade and race with somebody that you could, you know, beat up on. But to be out here, today he's gonna, no matter what happens, he's going to say he raced against Ned Overend today, and that is awesome. That's one of the great things about this sport is. Really, just as a teenager, I was able to go travel with, you know, my teammates and other riders from here in New Mexico, such as David Glass and Ed Lynn, former national champions from here in the state, who were able to go to races and see, like, our heroes up close and personal and actually race against them. So we're coming up on the main bunch, and you see as the wind is coming from the south, these riders are pressed right up against the right-hand side of the road, struggling to find some kind of shelter from the wind. Some of these riders would do well to start a second echelon as they worked so hard to regain contact. We see the riders at the front, led by Ned Overend, 56 years old. He's got a little bit of experience in this sort of racing. Overend all the way to the left-hand side. If you are in that front group, yes, you have to do more work, but it's better overall because at least you get a rest. There's Chris Abbott from Scalo Veloce. Chris Abbott able to make the front group. Winner of the Tierra del Sol road race earlier this year. Now, Sport Systems, they know they've got Dr. David Carey with an 8-minute lead, along with Kyle Martinez from Zia Velo. So in these last few miles before we hit the bottom of the climb, we're going to see Sport Systems start to set up their climbers. They want to be sure that Calvert, Ferrara, and especially Kip Taylor are in the front, in the lead, and don't get caught behind any gaps. What can happen if you find yourself out of position, it's not necessarily that you get dropped, but a guy at 5, at 10 places ahead of you lets a gap open up, and then you have to use extra energy to close that gap, and that's energy Kip Taylor is going to need to win this race against riders like Justin Lau and Drew Miller. Also in that group from Landis Trek Cyclery in the green and white, Mark Osmondstadt. He's no slouch, winner of the Tour of Los Alamos, another monument of American cycling that calls New Mexico home. Tour of Los Alamos coming up later this summer on just a fantastic course. That race also has a 42-year history, won by riders such as Tom Danielson in the past. Early in his career, Tom Danielson went on to become one of the top 10 American cyclists of all time. Racing out of Fort Lewis College. The Fort Lewis Skyhawks, really the elite mountain bike team in collegiate cycling since 1994. And collegiate cycling, a fantastic option for smaller schools that can't necessarily afford more expensive sports for really a small amount of money. Hire a coach or a manager to just make things happen, and you can have a team and you can compete. And that's why we see, of course, Fort Lewis and University of Colorado Boulder are among the best, but also some smaller colleges like Lees McRae in North Carolina and Marion College in Indiana. MIT, as a matter of fact, this year is a collegiate national championships. We're collegiate national champions, and that's great to see. Again, we always want to say thank you to our Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department. Now, what you see, those riders just losing contact with this main bunch, unable to stay in with the stay out of the wind and sheltered. This lead into the final climb is all about staying out of the wind, and the wind coming from the rider's left, from the right of your screen. That's why they're pressed all the way up against the right-hand side of the road. It's called the gutter ball. And this looks like a Chris Abbott, winner of the Tierra del Sol road race here in New Mexico earlier this year. Scalo missing Daniel Apello, New Mexico individual time trial champion, and their top finisher at Tour of the Gila. Apello is in Sweden. David Vaughn, the diminutive figure, only 5'6", mining engineer, graduate of New Mexico Tech in MIT. He's there in 4th position in the Ziavello uniform, the yellow and red. There's either Miller or Osmondstadt taking a sip of water from Landis Trek Cyclery in the green and white. Ned Overend, 1990 World Mountain Bike Champion, 56 years old. He's in the bright red of Specialized, making Mark Sinyard proud. Mark Sinyard, founder of Specialized, still races. Mike Sinyard, thank you, David Rice. And I apologize, Mr. Sinyard. I presented you with your award at Sea Otter. Sinyard still racing in his 50s. Founded Specialized because he found it difficult to find high-quality bicycle racing tires in the 1970s. After a few years of selling tires, he took a replica of a Joe Breeze mountain bike, took it to Hong Kong and or to Asia and mass-produced it. Called it the Stump Jumper, and the world was never the same. It took a little while. In the 80s, it was cool, but in the 90s, the sport of cycling, mountain biking, exploded in the United States and around the world. Ned Overend, the first world champion in 1990, winning that title at Durango. So we have a Vaughn, Verheuvel, and it looks like Fortunato Ferrara on the front right now. Scalo really missed out on the breakaway. Martinez and Dr. Carey took off from mile 1 early today, and Scalo out of position or didn't think it would last, or just missed out on it. And so they've really been really kind of missed the train, and it's up to them to do some work. Now Verheuvel, excellent rider, but a bigger guy, and he knows he's unlikely to beat Fortunato or Travis Lau or Drew Miller up to the top of Sandia Crest without a head start. So what he's doing is doing some work to limit the lead, to pull back a few seconds on Carey and Martinez before the climb for his top climber, which will probably be maybe Chris Abbott or Thomas Jones. Thomas Jones has been in the top 10 at this race in years past, and was Scalo's top, one of Scalo's top finishers at Tour of the Gila. And really, Tour of the Gila, what a jewel in the crown of New Mexico athletics. The internationally sanctioned event in Silver City, 5 days, and really the hardest race in America that any amateur rider can just go sign up for. Tour of California, sure. Tour of Colorado, if you're on a pro tour team and you get invited to that race as a professional, yeah, there might be more climbing. The races are a little longer, but not much. with Tour of the Gila, if you're an amateur rider with a license, you can sign up, and it'll be the hardest race you do all year. 5 days of a long, hard, high-altitude racing, and what that does in the month, 6 weeks, 2 months following that, really the rest of your career, it just changes your body doing races like that as an amateur. What we see here, the main bunch, some pressure on by Scalo, but Sport Systems and Ziovello saying, hey, our riders are in the breakaway. We've got an 8-minute lead. We're content to let David Carrier, Kyle Martinez win the race. But you can see that the pace is taking its toll as riders are being dropped off the back. We started with about 40 riders earlier today. They're in the middle, taking a drink of water. Ned Overend, nicknamed the Lung in his heyday. The son of some American diplomats is Ned Overend. There on the front, Damian Calvert just getting a little stretch. These riders know now, especially the Albuquerque riders, as this is where they train all the time, that it's just a few miles from the base of the climb. We'll come back to the triangle. From there, it's 13.6 miles, 3,800 feet, straight up. They're in second position. The taller figure in the green and white will be Asmundstad, winner of last year's Tour of Los Alamos. That race, 27 miles per lap, and just a fantastic course. If it weren't for national security reasons, it would be a stellar world championship course, would be the Tour of Los Alamos. Starting at Los Alamos National Laboratories, birthplace of the atomic era, and the backside of that course goes past the Bandelier Monument, 1,000-year-old Native American ruins. So on each lap, there's climbing, descending, beautiful scenery, and you go from the atomic era to the prehistoric era on each lap. That race is in the summer. Little conversation on the front. There in the middle, with the black shoulders, that's Kip Taylor with the newer Sport Systems kit, apparently. Kip Taylor, winner of the Iron Horse Road Race. And he was the top rider out of that main bunch to the top of Heartbreak. Taylor definitely going good. Maybe the favorite to win. I mean, we don't know that much about Lau since we haven't seen him at the local races here. He's been down in Central Texas, but he's been doing great. Noticeably absent this year are our under-23 riders from New Mexico. Caleb Fuchs, our state champion. I want to take this opportunity to say a couple good things about Fuchs. At Tarleton State, he's a sophomore from Santa Rosa, the youngest outright state champion in 34 years since 1979. Caleb Fuchs won that race last year, just 19 years old. He'll be 20 this year, but Fuchs unable to make it. Also, Jonathan Petrillo, who last year was the top junior rider at Tour of the Gila. Petrillo also traveling on the East Coast. He rides for Sport Systems, and he would have been a top 10 candidate for this race. Petrillo, excellent University of New Mexico student and a serious student in the sport of cycling. Collegiate cycling is wonderful, but it's very unusual to have any kind of scholarship. And really what amateur sports is, they say, is supposed to be about. You're getting your degree, so you better take that part of it seriously. Petrillo having to miss Tour of the Gila because he had finals this year. And working on his engineering degree, I believe, at the University of New Mexico. But two great young riders. Hans Whitefield for Sport Systems, another good young rider here in New Mexico. Probably our top under-23 rider in this field. There on the front, Travis Gleason for Flagstaff. He's in the sort of orangish yellow with the black shorts, having a chat with one of our University of New Mexico riders. This is Frost Road. What you're seeing now is the main bunch who at the last check trailed our two leaders by about 8 minutes. Now in 2005, again, Tom Zerbel, then unknown, 2 years before he turned pro, Tom Zerbel had a 9-minute lead at the base of this climb, was able to hold on for victory. That Zerbel, an unusual specimen who went on to a professional career, was one of the finishing in the top 5 at World Time Trial Championships a few years later, and this year is the 2013 U.S. Pro Time Trial Champion. Zerbel also won the individual time trial Tour of the Gila, and those two things frequently go together, as Dave Zabriskie has had some success there as well. Also, last year's individual time trial winner went on to win the Pro U.S. Time Trial Championship, Evan Huffman.
maybe his perspective as we go down.
John Verhule back to the front for Scalo Veloce. That's where I'll be having lunch today. Restaurant located in Albuquerque's Nob Hill area on historic Route 66, just east of the University of New Mexico. One of the best Italian restaurants you'll find anywhere, and a longtime sponsor of cycling in New Mexico. Sponsored a team in the 80s and 90s, and out of the sport for a few years, but they're back in Scalo, one of the top teams in New Mexico, really. Scalo Sport Systems, High Desert Bikes, and Zia Velo. The elite men's teams. The women's race is underway as well. Mindy Caruso here today, former 35-plus national time trial champion. Caruso just got fourth place at Iron Horse last weekend by just 4 seconds. She was in the front group and just didn't win the sprint. Caruso raced 35-plus with her husband, Matt, who won the overall in the 35-plus lower categories at Tour de Gila. And as far as we know, Mindy and Matt make the United States' only husband-wife lead-out team, and that's fun to watch. But Mindy racing with the guys and really kind of sticking it to them at the Tour of the Gila. Now here we have a couple fans, and this young man we'll see in the orange, that may be our next New Mexico state champion. That's the future of American cycling there on the right side. He's definitely enjoying seeing this bike race come by today. You can see at this point some of the riders who are off the back have regained contact as the leaders. Of course, Sport Systems and Zia Velo don't want to chase at all, and everybody's kind of putting their guns on their holsters until we get to the triangle and the final climb, which is just a few miles away. But Mindy Caruso in the race today on the women's side, as well as Sarah Lowe for the New Mexico Spokettes, New Mexico's elite women's racing team. Sarah Lowe won the beginners class at Tour de Gila, and as well as the criterium at the adoption exchange earlier this year. Sarah Lowe she won 2 or 3 stages of Tour de Gila. In fact, crashed in the finale of the Gila Monster Road Race and still got up and finished in the top 5. Did Sarah Lowe like the legendary Gino Bartali. She was boxed in the sprint and just went straight ahead. Great to see. Also, Maria Santiago in the women's race as well. Santiago, winner of all of the stages at Iron Horse last week. So we'll have their podium presentation at the top, as they should finish about 20 or 30 minutes before the men. They just went straight up, which is 26 miles. The elite men's race is 57 in length. And we're re-entering San Antonito. We're passing the post office. San Antonito, here since the 19th century. Again, the church still here in fantastic condition, dating to the 1880s, and that's what 2.5 foot thick adobe walls will do for you. Those of you watching from around the world, in Socorro, New Mexico, we have our churches. Has been there since 1598. Those walls are 4 feet thick to protect the Socorro truly friendly natives from the raids from the other natives 400 years ago. But that church 415 years old, a little bit older than Jamestown and the Pilgrims. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the triangle. And we're into the last hour of racing. Our situation, we have 2 leaders. At the last check, they were 8 minutes up the road. This is the main bunch on the front. It's John Verhule, followed by Damian Calvert and Kip Taylor. Here we are. We're on to the Sandia Crest climb, 13.6 miles, 3,800 feet to 10,678 feet. Fortunato Ferrara for Sports Systems on the top. He won this race 2 years ago. Right on his will, Damian Calvert, 2009 champion, followed by Kip Taylor. The Sports Systems train has taken the front. They've got David Carey up the road by about 8 minutes. Now, what they'll do is just ride tempo and see how many riders they can ride off their wheel, and they've already done it. We already see gaps opening about halfway back the main field. It looks like David Vaughn just making it across there, but maybe Chris Schleyback might have missed it. Behind Taylor, Kip Taylor is in the black and white, also from Sports Systems, just wearing a slightly different jersey. Drew Miller is behind Taylor in the green and white. He's 6-time winner of this race, 3-time winner, Tour of the Gila, 46 years old. Behind him, also in green and white, slightly taller, Mike Asmundstad, winner of the Tour of Los Alamos. It looks like Chris Abbott tucked in the blue and white of Scalo. Right behind Asmundstad, and behind him, David Vaughn from Carlsbad, New Mexico. Peeking out in the red jersey of Specialized, Ned Overend. Our race official, Joe Campbell, we want to thank him for being out here today, making sure everything's done by the book, and we want to bring you the best shots we can. But due to the nature of the sport of cycling, we can't be too close to the front of the group, so that we can't be accused of allowing them to draft off of our vehicle. But at these speeds, although right now these riders are going 15 to 20 miles an hour, and I can tell you, I was up here on Friday going hard, and I was going 10. And I'm not that out of shape, you know. And these guys are just cruising right now, but you can see just cruising for Damian Calvert has the back of the field under pressure. Calvert and Fortunato Ferrara having a conversation on the front. Ned Overend right behind them. Making the selection so far for Bike and Sport, Chris Brennaman, and there the tall figure in the black and orange, that's Justin Lau, last year's winner, 6'4", 150 from the University of Texas. Last year's New Mexico overall points leader has since moved to the University of Texas to pursue his graduate degree in geography. Santiago Chavez from El Paso trying to hold on. Now the train hasn't left the station. We're just getting to that part as we enter the Sandia Crest Highway, 13.6 miles. Now this highway originally built not by Leonard Skinnard, but by Leonard Skinner 100 years ago, a logging tycoon who built a mill, a lumber mill up here in the 1870s. Paid $1 million of his own dollars 100 years ago to build the road, only to have the forest closed to logging by the Cibola National Forest. But that is why it's here for us today. The road was upgraded in the 20s and then finally completed by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 1930s. 8 minutes is still the gap to the leaders. And once we see some fireworks out of this main bunch, we're going to go on up to our leaders, but not yet. Right now we still see Asmundstad's getting a drink. That means the pace isn't too high. And that's what you'll see when the pace hits, as we see Ned Overend look down between his at his gears as the riders make it through the final feed zone. Now at this point, you'll see riders dropping bottles, and littering is not permitted in this race. They might pick up one for this last hour, but for the most part, they just want to make sure they got enough to drink up this hill. But there will be few opportunities in this last hour. This road was a single lane up till 1922. As we say, completed by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 30s. The Civilian Conservation Corps camp was originally in Sulphur Canyon from 1933 to 35, but subsequently moved to a spot across from Tinkertown, where it stayed until 1941. We'll pass Tinkertown in just a few moments. If you've never done so, it's definitely worth the trip up into the foothills. As we see, it looks like Santiago Chavez from Ziavello losing contact with the main bunch. Steady pace on the front by Asmundstad, looking to set up Drew Miller, who rides in 5th position. For Sports Systems, it's Damian Calvert. And it looks like Sports Systems may have decided on Kip Taylor, especially after that display that Taylor put on Heartbreak Hill. Still in the feed zone, you'll see the friends, family, and supporters of these riders out here with the water bottles. Now, if you're off the back, you're definitely going to get a bottle because you just want to get to the top. And I can tell you from experience, if you are dropped early, if you just maintain a high level concentration, a high level of speed, you can ride your way back into the top 10. Because some of these riders in this elite group will overcook themselves. They'll try to stay with Miller. They'll try to stay with Taylor. They'll try to stay with Ferrara and go into the red zone too long. It takes so long to recover, you may never completely recover. Whereas a smart rider who can stay within himself can roll up a lot of riders in this next 13.6 miles, which will take about an hour. Cibola National Forest, land of many uses, including the Sandia Crest road race. And we are very fortunate that the road has not been closed due to fire restrictions. New Mexico, one of the driest states in America. We've had less than an inch of rain since September. And these roads may be closed within a couple weeks if we don't get any rain. 3,828 feet is the elevation gain. The temperature will drop by about 20 degrees from San Antonio to the top. Every 1,000 feet that we gain in elevation is equivalent, is the life zone equivalent of moving 300 to 600 miles north in latitude. So we'll go from the desert of the Rio Grande Valley to what's called the Hudsonian zone by the top of the climb. And the plant life that you see at the top of Sandia Crest is similar to the plant life that you'll see near Hudson Bay in Canada. You can see the field is strung out. It looks like Lau is having some difficulty. The 6'4" Lau with his head down, it looks like he's losing contact with the main bunch. Osmondstad on the front. His pacemaking is taking its toll. Chris Abbott also in difficulty. Farrar right on his wheel along with Kip Taylor. Damian Calvert forcing Drew Miller to close that gap, and that's what Calvert and Miller, both in their 40s, they've raced against each other for a long time. Just those little moves like that, making Miller take this or that, use a few more calories, just try a little harder when he otherwise wouldn't have had to. Those few extra efforts are going to take their toll by the end of the race, and that's definitely I would suggest a calculated move on Calvert's part to force Miller to keep coming around him as we pass the Dock Long picnic area or campsite, also built by the Civilian Conservation Corps. Just to the west of Dock Long in a Tejano Canyon is the site of the Leonard Skinner sawmill. And the lower categories started at Fort Hills Shopping Center, where we started, where the elite men started, and they just came straight up the hill. So we'll start to catch some riders. As this individual looks like he's just out enjoying the day on a beautiful old Eddie Merckx. Eddie Merckx racing bike on the left. Eddie Merckx, of course, the greatest cyclist ever pedal a bike, 5-time winner of the Tour de France and the Tour of Italy and every monument in the 60s and 70s, and really one of the reasons for the popularity of road cycling in America. So our elite group is down to about 7 riders. We have Osmondstad and Miller from Landis Trek Cyclery. Right in there, we have Fortunato Ferrara, followed by Kip Taylor for Sport Systems. Damian Calvert in the back in the red helmet. David Vaughn for Zia Velo is in this group. Drew Miller is in this group. As we turn this corner, let's see if we're missing anybody. Ned Overend, 56 years old in the red Specialized jersey. So we have a group of 7 riders. Justin Lau has been dropped, ladies and gentlemen. But the race is far from over. Right now, we're going to cruise up to our leaders, Dr. David Carey and Kyle Martinez, who started the climb with an 8-minute lead. This is ProView Networks. It's a great place to be seen. Welcome back. This is ProView Networks. It's a great place to be seen, bringing you the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race. We're back up to the breakaway in your screen right now. Dr. David Carey from Rio Grande Dermatology and Sport System Cycling in the breakaway, along with Kyle Martinez. They came into the climb with an 8-minute lead on the main field. We just left the main field, which was diminished to just about 8 riders. Now we're coming up on Kyle Martinez, former University of New Mexico Lobo. Kyle Martinez, the Lobo, racing for Zia Velo. He's on a road to glory, trying to get everything he can out of those legs. Came into this ride with into this climb with an 8-minute lead on the main bunch. That bunch now being led by Mark Asmonstadt and Drew Miller from Landis Trek Cyclery. So now the situation back behind. Again, Sport Systems probably won't contribute to the chase until if and when they catch Dr. Carey, who's a few seconds behind Martinez, but not too much. Carey is definitely not giving up, but he's just setting that high pace. Both of these riders at this point, they've worked so hard to get here. All they can do is just put their head down and go as fast as they can. They've got about 10 miles to the top. And they're just going to give everything they have for those last 10 miles and try and pace themselves. Just think about the highest pace they can maintain effortlessly. You can see the effort on the face of Kyle Martinez. For those of you runners out there, this would be like your 5-10K pace that he's going to maintain now, and try and save something for the last mile if he can do it. He's just going to go as fast as he can and hope that main bunch, he's able to hold off that main bunch. He started the climb with an 8-minute lead, and Martinez, not a bad climber at all. The Lobo's top of the line model for quite a few years. And this is Albuquerque, where everyone's a Lobo. Some of these riders we're rolling up. Some of them are fans who are out to watch the race. Some of them are riders from the lower categories. The beginner class, the Category 5 that you, me, and anyone could sign up for. And it's just 26 miles straight to the top. And you can see the elite men, they'll be doing 57. They did an extra 31 miles, and they will be catching some of the beginner riders. And that's not a knock on the beginners. Just being out here and riding to the top is a major accomplishment. It just tells you the elite level that the elite men are at, including Kyle Martinez on a road to glory. Martinez and Dr. Carey, the heroes of the day here at the Sandia Crest Road Race. They went from the first mile on the overpass before you get to Carnuel, and they were their lead maxed out at about 9 minutes. Back in 2005, Tom Zerbel, now a professional for Optum Kelly Benefit Strategies and the 2013 U.S. National Time Trial Champion, took a 9-minute lead into this climb 8 years ago before he was a professional, and he was able to hold off the chasers for the win. And after that, he was a pro. After that, somebody knew who Tom Zerbel was. And, of course, he went on. Not only is he this year's National Time Trial Champion, but he was top 5 in the Individual Time Trial World Championships just a few years ago. That was 2009, if I'm not mistaken. Martinez up out of the saddle, trying to set a strong tempo, but he and Dr. Carey, who's still maintaining contact, Carey just about 30 seconds behind Martinez. They expended so much energy to get to the base of the climb. But Martinez does have David Vaughn, the Cat 3 Tour de Gila champion and a winner of the mountain bike races, Horny Toad Hustle and Signal Peak Challenge. Vaughn, a fantastic mountain bike racer, definitely a strong engine, and he's sitting in reserve for Ziavello, and that's Martinez going for the glory himself, but also allowing his teammate to just sit behind those taller, more experienced riders and say, hey, if you want to catch the winners, you got to do it. Martinez looking up the road. You can see the grimace on his face at this point. He looks back and knows that Dr. Carey's still setting a strong pace as David Carey, but not coming back to Martinez. Martinez not cracking at this point by any stretch of the imagination. He's just going to sit on those tops, and on the climbs, the riders will sit in a more upright position to allow their lungs to fully inflate. If you look closely, you'll be able to see Martinez's belly actually pooch out. We may get a side shot, but we may not due to our camera position. But it's not because he's got a gut. It's that's him purposely pooching out his stomach to allow his lungs to completely inflate. And of course, that's a breathing technique that runners will employ as well to maximize the power production, because that oxygen goes to the bloodstream and carries the energy to the muscles, which makes these riders fly up these mountainsides. Again, we're going between 10 and 15 miles an hour up this climb for Martinez, who's been out front for the entire race. We've got less than 9 miles to go, about 8.5 to the finish, but it's almost all uphill. There will be one short descent down into Sandia Peak ski area, and that's coming up in less than a mile. We're on the Sandia Crest Scenic Byway, this beautiful road. The geology here is truly fantastic. Hard to believe 280 million years ago, geologists tell us that this was the bottom of an ocean, and this block of granite was forced up out of the ground. As a matter of fact, when we hit the top of Sandia Peak, it will actually be 15,000 feet to the bottom of the face of the Sandias. Of course, the bottom 5,000 feet of that is submerged, is beneath the surface of the earth. And when we hit the top, of course, we'll see the Seven Sisters that ring the western side of Albuquerque in the Rio Grande Valley, the 7 volcanoes that contributed to the formation of this area. Martinez setting a good tempo. You can see the Ziavello rider, University of New Mexico graduate, turning a relatively small gear as he's passed by a really sweet-looking Corvette. These roads are open to traffic, and we see a couple of folks out for a spin on one of the most scenic drives in America. We're passing the Tree Spring trailhead now. Kyle Martinez. David Carey still not too far behind for Sports Systems. It'll be a while before the leaders are able to catch him. What you see behind you, this is the Tree Springs trailhead. You'll see the two aforementioned beautiful Corvettes in the parking lot, and quite a few hikers enjoying the Cibola National Forest this weekend. Again, the National Forest may be closed, including this road, in a couple weekends if we don't get any rain. We hope that's not the case, and we are definitely thankful that we're able to enjoy the Sandia Crest Highway. Built 100 years ago, again, by loggers, a one-lane dirt road. Really designed more for ox carts than for cars at that time. Improved in the 20s. And then completed in the 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps. Resurfaced in the early 1980s. Those are the couple of years when this race did not take place. But this race has taken place every year since the late 60s, early 70s. There's some controversy as to when the first officially organized Sandia Crest Road Race took place. But the list of winners is a who's who of American cycling, including Todd Gugulski, who is here racing in one of the lower categories. Gugulski, winner of this race on 3 occasions. Went on to a fantastic career with Coors Light. And Gugulski now a commentator for many of the Pro Tour events, one of the top cycling personalities in America and in the English language is Gugulski, who's here. Santa Fe resident during his time as a professional. This race won many times by John Frye, national and world record holder and Albuquerque resident. And Drew Miller, who at 46 years old is in the race today. 6-time winner of this event, 3-time winner of Tour of the Gila. I already mentioned Tom Zerbel, who won this race in 2005 and has gone on to a fantastic pro career with Optum presented by Kelly Benefit Strategies. Martinez still looking strong, and all he'll be thinking about right now is forcing as much power as he can into those pedals as we come up on mile 6. Martinez will see mile marker 6. That means he's got less than 8 miles to go, and one of those miles is downhill. That's what he's really looking forward to now, is just a little respite for those legs, as Dr. Carey has lost contact now with Martinez. The descent into the ski area. He won't go slow, he'll go fast, but he'll be able to coast for a few minutes and shake some of the lactic acid out of those legs, Will Martinez. He's been off the front since mile 1. Some fans out on the road, Martinez says it hurts. That's what this sport is all about. Colin Martinez definitely brought his suitcase of courage today. He opened it and took out all of the laundry for this fantastic breakaway. He gets a few words. He's going to get a time split from the official lead car that's driven by race promoter Randy Corcoran. And we'll give you a time split as soon as we can, as soon as the traffic led through by Corcoran. Now, what we'll do once we get to the Sandia Peak ski area, we'll take a break and get a time split, and we'll go back to the chase group. Martinez having the ride of his life here at the Sandia Crest Road Race. If he could hold on for these last 6 or 7 miles, this would be by far the biggest win of his career. But that is why riders go in the early breakaways, because you never know what's going to happen at the top level in the Tour de France and the Tour of California and the upcoming USA Pro Cycling Challenge, better known as the Tour of Colorado by most people. That's coming up in August. You see the early breakaway always goes and almost always gets caught. Well, those at that level, all those riders have radios in their ears and their team manager telling them exactly what the situation is. But here in New Mexico, it's old school. Most teams can't afford that technology. at the amateur level. So when the breakaway goes up the road, you get the time splits, but you don't get them like every 30 seconds. You get them every once in a while. And so when that lead goes out to 8 minutes and nobody wants to do the chase, well, a rider like Kyle Martinez, this could be the greatest ride of his life. So now we're going to accelerate away from Martinez as we enter the descent into the Sandia Peak ski area. And we'll pull over to stay out of the way of the race. And then what we will do is we'll get the time as Martinez comes by, and we'll go back to the chasers, and we'll get a time from there. This is ProView Networks. It's a great place to be seen. You're watching the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race. Dr. David Carey in the second place on the road, and just pulling off a top 10 would just be fantastic for Dr. Carey, winner earlier this year of the Trifecta Road Race.
Yeah, it's going to be a few minutes for the rest of the guys.
That race was down in Hillsborough. We'll be right back when the chasers come through on ProView Networks. This will be the chasers. Here's our chase group. Our leader, Kyle Martinez, with the 4 riders in hot pursuit. That's Ned Overend, Kip Taylor, Drew Miller, and Fortunato Ferrara. Once again, thank you to our driver, David Rice, doing a great job of putting safety first. And that's what we care about here. We want to bring you the race, but we want to be sure we don't interfere with the competition of the races. We get the fantastic views from these the Sandia Crest Road Race. We just passed the Sandia Peak ski area, which is opened in 1936. It's actually leased from the Cibola National Forest from the federal government, but 25% of those lease payments go to local roads and schools right here in Bernalillo County. Now that the Sandia Peak ski area The shortest season ever was 5 days in the 60s, but the longest year has been 148 days. They went from Thanksgiving to Easter back in 71, 72. Great area to ski, and of course you can catch the Sandia Peak Tram, the world's longest aerial tramway. And you can take that right from Albuquerque. You don't even have to drive over here and park. Of course, you could enjoy it, but the Sandia Peak Tram will take you right to the top of the Sandia Peak ski area. And that's a great way to enjoy this area in the winter and in the summer where they have mountain bike racing. Now, what's coming into your view right now will be our 4 leaders: Kip Taylor, Ned Overend, Mark Asmundstad, and Fortunato Ferrara. Also in the background is the Balsam Glade picnic area. Now that's where the Las Huertas road comes out. Las Huertas comes up from Placitas. So you go from Bernalillo through Placitas, and it's a dirt road that comes all the way up here to the Sandia Crest roadway. That dirt road was built in 1924. At the dedication of the road, 200 automobiles from Albuquerque and 700 people made the drive up in 1924 for the opening of the Las Huertas Highway. Of course, in years past, the Sandia Crest Road Race has used that road as part of the old Watermelon Classic, one of the greatest rides you can do from Albuquerque. It's called Around the Mountain. You can ride up to Bernalillo through Placitas, up the dirt road up here to Sandia Crest, and you can come down the Sandia Crest Highway into San Antonio, Cedar Crest to Harris, and back to Albuquerque. But that road has been used in the past, and it is paved. It's drivable. It can be bad when it rains, though, but of course that hasn't happened much since September. Also off of the Las Huertas Highway is the Sandia Cave, most notorious for Sandia Man, which was in the 1930s was estimated to be 8,000-year-old remains of prehistoric human ancestors here in the Sandia Mountains, and that's how long mankind has used this area to live and to play. In your screen now, Fortunato Ferrara on the front for Sports Systems, followed by Mark Asmundstad, winner of the Tour of Los Alamos. Ned Overend, 56 years old in the red jersey of Specialized. You can see the effort on his face. World mountain bike champion 23 years ago. 2-time world Xterra champion. And right behind him, looking cool, is Kip Taylor. Kip Taylor in the black and white, also racing for Sports Systems. Winner of the Iron Horse Classic just a week ago. Fortunato Ferrara, winner of this race 2 years ago. Ferrara, one of the top riders in the state since 2009 when he moved here. Full-time employee at Los Alamos National Labs. Fortunato won the Adoption Exchange Classic earlier this year in April. Albuquerque's top stage race that every April here in New Mexico. Another win for Fortunato. In addition to that individual time trial, Carlsbad Tour de Potash, the Carlsbad Cave City Classic, which is also in April, the weekend before for the dealer. Kip Taylor was the overall winner of the Time Trial Series, which occurs every summer. That takes place over the course of 4 weeks, as we have a little bit of a split here between our leaders. Overend's in a little bit of trouble. Overend and Fortunato dropping off the back of that field of that group of 4. That leaves it just to Asmundstad and Kip Taylor. Mark Asmundstad looks over his shoulder, and he sees that he's got a little bit of a gap. Now, is Fortunato in trouble, or is he actually trying to gap off Ned Overend? I don't think he would try to do that at this stage of the race. I think Fortunato and Overend have gone into the red line a little bit as we're about halfway up the climb. A little bit more than halfway. It's all uphill from here. So Mark Asmundstad and Kip Taylor, this will be the duel as we start the switchbacks at the top of the Sandia Crest Highway. Kip Taylor in the black and white for Sports Systems, winner of the Iron Horse Classic. Mark Asmundstad, winner of last year's Tour of Los Alamos, over from Arizona, into the green and white of Landis Trek Cyclery. These riders that we're sweeping up, these are riders who have started the beginner class earlier today. And through our front windshield, we see Dr. David Carey, who's done the ride of his life. Now, David Carey has done the work that needed to be done for Sports Systems. He was the rider who was off the front since mile 1, and he allowed his teammates to sit in that pack and soften up the weaker teams and the individual riders. And David Carey has done the work for his team. Kip Taylor coming up right behind him with Mark Osmondstad. Dr. David Carey still in the shot at a top 10 finish here at the Sandia Crest Road Race. No one from Scalo in the elite group. They are the team that missed that breakaway. So Carey and Martinez did a fantastic job today. David Carey going to look behind him. They'll see a couple riders, including Ned Overend coming up. And if I was Carey, I would ask for an autograph. But a great ride from Dr. Carey today. You see some riders from our lower categories still making their way up the Sandia Crest Road Race. It's a fantastic accomplishment. Here's the ride of 26 miles from the Fort Hill Shopping Center where we started today to the top of the crest. Also in sight through our front windshield, we see Kyle Martinez. He's only got about 30 seconds on the chasers. But once the hammer dropped, these elite riders have gone so fast up this climb. Martinez and Carey were definitely the heroes of the day, though. We'll see Martinez in just a few moments. Doing the work to set up their teammates. Now, hopefully that David is a great top 10 finish as well. Vaughn has been racing for 30 years. He also was able to sit in the entire race because he had a teammate off the front now. We see the pedaling style of Martinez now pedaling squares, as they say on television. Martinez off the front for 50 miles. Our sole leader still with a minute. Kyle Martinez off the front for 50 miles, putting every ounce of energy into those pedals. Everyone's a Lobo. The CFL rider. There's a woof, 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 he says, as we come by. And the fans are lining the road, getting to see the race come by 2 or 3 times. Good job. Kyle Martinez getting the ovation from the fans who are out here jogging along. We see Taylor and Osmondstad behind him, and it looks like Taylor has gapped Osmondstad. Osmondstad with his head down. That's when you know the pressure is on. He's trying to force more air into those lungs. But back in the distance, we see Taylor has dropped Osmondstad. Kyle Martinez hanging on, trying to see how long he can last against the best riders in the Southwest and in America. This is the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race, brought to you by Sports Systems and by Johnny Boards. And of course, brought to you by ProView Networks. It's a great place to be seen. We left the 8,000 mile mark far behind long ago. We're approaching 9,000 feet of elevation as Martinez continues to put the power into those pedals. But after making such a fantastic effort for over 50 miles on the front, it's a 57-mile race and we've got less than 5 to go. And they went from mile 1. 51 miles off the front for Kyle Martinez. Hasn't been caught yet. Now Osmondstad has recovered and made it back up to the wheel of Taylor. Osmondstad, the taller rider in green and white, goes right to the front. Osmondstad, winner of the Tour of Los Alamos last year. Kip Taylor coming off his win at Iron Horse just a week ago. Osmondstad, 39 years old, no spring chicken, racing for Landis Trek. And here's the catch. Osmondstad and Taylor with not even a glance over the shoulder because they're completely focused on the duel between the two of them. And it will be a duel for the remaining 4.5 miles of this race. Back in the distance, we see the red of Ned Overend, 56 years old, in a fourth place on the road. We'll probably catch Martinez in a few moments. And behind him, we can see Fortunato Ferrara, 2011 winner, and Tour of Los Alamos National Labs full-time employee is Fortunato Ferrara. Osmondstad on the front. Kip Taylor, the former Mountain West Colorado State University cross-country runner. They've been racing bikes for 3 years, which is he's just a baby in the sport. Trying to follow in the footsteps of Matthew Flip Boucher, who is a All-American cross-country runner in the Midwest, moved to Las Cruces, New Mexico, and was discovered by Johan Bernil and Team Radio Shack. We saw Boucher finish in the top 10 at the Tour of California just 2 weeks ago. reasons New Mexico has such a great tradition of producing fantastic cyclists is cross-country runners who crossed over to two wheels. In the Category 3 at Turquoise Hill, we spoke with Marcus Toya, who's of Tine and Jemez extraction, and was very excited about going back to Jemez Valley and to Gallup and some of his little brothers and little cousins on two wheels, considering the fantastic running heritage that we have in New Mexico in places like Laguna, Acoma, Jemez Valley, and Gallup. But Kip Taylor, Colorado, he's in second place just sitting on that wheel. Mark Osmondstadt. Osmondstadt riding on the hoods. Slightly bigger rider, 39 years old in the green and white. Could have easily raced 35 plus. But choosing not to. Looking to his right, looking up these switchbacks. And the farther up he is, we are now above 9,000 feet. With about 4 miles to go to the finish. These switchbacks steeper on the inside. You don't have to ride as far, but you're able to but it's definitely steeper, so a bigger rider like Osmondstadt is not going to take the very inside line. He's going to want to maintain his tempo. The slightly bigger rider is going to want to just go as fast as he can all the way to the top and hope he can just like ride Kip Taylor off his wheel. But Taylor looking very calm and collected in the black and white. Kip Taylor in Cat 3 just a year ago won the road race at the Adoption Exchange Classic, which starts and finishes at the bottom of this hill at Paco, and won multiple stages of Tour de Gila as a Cat 3 last year. So Kip Taylor last year is, or David Vaughn is this year. Vaughn on down the road now, but currently riding third position, 56-year-old Ned Overend. Overend will see him down the road in red, with these two riders steadily riding away from the field. Overend looking like he's at about a minute. Coming up on mile 10, so the next safe point, we're going to pull off with 4 miles to go, and we're going to get some pictures of the chasers for you, and we'll come back to our two leaders, Mark Osmondstadt and Kip Taylor. Osmondstadt in the green and white, over from Arizona. A fixture in Southwest cycling. For many years, 39 years young is Osmondstadt. And there in the distance, you see the red Specialized jersey, 56-year-old Ned Overend. Third place in the elite men. Osmondstadt sits up a little bit, says to see if Kip Taylor will pull through and set the pace. And Taylor does not. Taylor is going to content to sit on that wheel and say, hey buddy, we got 4 miles to go. If you want to win this race, you're going to have to do it. Our two leaders, Mark Osmondstadt in the green and white, Kip Taylor in the black and white. Locked in battle with 4 miles to go. Coming up in third, Ned Overend with still 4 miles to race in the red of Specialized. The team that he's raced for since the 1980s, since they came out with this stump jumper. 6-time Norba National Champion, the first world mountain bike champion in history in 1990, 23 years ago. He retired 16 years ago. After he retired, 2-time World Xterra Champion. At about 40 seconds is Ned Overend for Team Specialized. Next on the road, Fortunato Ferrara. Fortunato from Los Alamos, New Mexico. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to race a bike, but he can do it anyway. About 45 seconds behind for Fortunato Ferrara in 4th place on the road. Now the riders you will see riding down will be riders from the lower categories who have already finished. And the gravity race is one of the best parts of racing a bike. Especially if you're a bigger rider and you didn't win going up. You can usually go pretty fast going back down. So we're a minute behind the leaders now, and what we're going to do is we're going to see what the situation is for the top 10, and then we will cruise back up to the leaders and see the how the showdown plays out between Kip Taylor and Mark Osmondstadt. Now this is the golden red of Ziavello, and from the labored pedaling style. We look like it's Kyle Martinez, the hero of the day, the most aggressive rider. Although we have to say Dr. David Carey did win the $100 premium at the top of Heartbreak Hill. Martinez, the last survivor of the two from the day's breakaway. Still in 5th place on the road with 4 miles to go. And only about 2 minutes behind the leaders. Martinez still with a chance at a top 10 finish. Kyle Martinez still 5th place on the road. Just about 2 minutes behind the leaders. Still with a good chance at a top 10, but he's going to have to give everything he has. And he's taken so much out of the tank so far. But he'll put his head down and just try to make every pedal stroke count. Now this looks like Dr. David Carey still in 6th place. David Carey recovering well. A little bit older and wiser is Dr. Carey. Again, just maintaining that high tempo, the highest pace that he can maintain. Still in the 6th place on the road. David Carey, just about 2.5 minutes down, 6th place on the road. Looking actually pretty good at this point is Dr. Carey on that Specialized S-Works. And you can find one just like that at Sports Systems on Montgomery and Louisiana in Albuquerque. Now entering your picture, on his way down, Dan Armijo, a longtime fixture in New Mexico for Squadra de la Pista. He will have raced in the 50-plus race. Now, see, Ned Overend could have done that, but no, he's racing with the elite men, and he's currently in 3rd place on the road. This will be 7th place, looking like Dave Vaughn for Ziavello. Looks over his shoulder and sees no one behind him. He's going to be at about 3.5 minutes. Winner of the Signal Peak Challenge and the Horny Toad Hustle off-road races coming up from Carlsbad. Currently in 7th place at about 3.5 minutes, David Vaughn, pedaling hard, looking strong. In pursuit of those leaders, pedaling that small gear on that Scott machine that he has there. Scott, the former bicycle provider of the old HTC Columbia team, the #1 team in the world for 3 years. And really now legendary, based in the United States. Unable to find a sponsor a couple of years ago, though they had the world champion on their team. Vaughn in 7th place. In 8th place, this looks like Drew Miller. 6-time winner, 46 years old is Drew. Drew was at Tour of the Gila, but he came down sick at Gila and had to go home. And it looks like that lack of training has taken its toll. But Miller riding himself back into shape in 8th place at Tour of the Gila right now. Drew Miller will be glad to hear, if he can hear me at all, that Osmond, Stott, and Taylor are together about 4.5 minutes up the road. Miller currently in 8th place for 2013. This is Damian Calvert, 9th place on the road. He's at about 5.5 minutes. Calvert, one of the Sports Systems riders, about 5.5 minutes down. Taylor and Osmond Stott together in the lead. That's our 9th place rider on the road. So as soon as we see 10th place come by, we'll get back up to the leaders, and we'll see the finish of this spectacular event. Less than 4 miles to go. In fact, our lead duo should be at about 3 miles to go at this point. In the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race. Here come the two Ziavello riders. This will probably Chris Schleback and Santiago Chavez. Schleback from Silver City, one of the 2 Silver City riders who finished here the Gila this year with the elite men's group. Santiago Chavez in the white helmet from El Paso, Category 1 rider with a day job and a family, and that's saying something. So this is 10th and 11th. 10th and 11th on the road for Ziavello. It is Schleback and Chavez. Ziavello with 4 riders in the top 11 right now. So we're going to cruise back up to the leaders at this point. And again, thank you to David Rice, our driver, for providing the vehicle, driving safely, and a very experienced racer is Rice, and we appreciate him being out here today. Schleback and Chavez, the teammates for Ziavello, the team based in southern New Mexico for over 30 years. And they'll ride together to the top. And it's just always good to have a teammate, even if like the draft doesn't help that much, just for like mental support to keep each other going fast. Here's Damian Calvert, currently in 9th place on the road. Calvert second place overall by just a few seconds in the elite 35+ class at Tour de Gila. First time racing with the old guys, but Calvert won the Mogollon stage of Tour de Gila, and followed that up with winning at the Oh-So-High mountain bike race like a week later. Calvert, a great rider, and he will have enjoyed passing his son Mason farther down the road. The next rider to enter your screen will be Drew Miller, 7th place on the, 9th place on the road. Is Drew Miller, 6-time winner of this race, 46 years old. And we started with the 40 elite riders, and this is the cream of the crop. We're in the top 10. Here's Kyle Martinez. Martinez, the hero of the day, about to come into your screen. Off the front the whole ride. Martinez with just 3 miles to go, still in the top 10. Just laboring with those pedals. That's what happens when you're in the lead and you still have that hope of victory. You can still have hope, and hope gives you strength. But once that hope is gone, you're just trying to get to the finish. He's been passed by teammate David Vaughn. At this point, Vaughn's job, the breakaway by Martinez was so Vaughn didn't have to work for the first 40 miles of the race. And now Vaughn's job is to go as fast as he can. He's doing very well in 6th place on the road. That would be a all-time high finish for Vaughn at this race. Again, he has won elite amateur races in elite amateur mountain bike races, but still just a Cat 3 on the road. Dr. Carey has, in fact, passed Kyle Martinez. Dr. Carey looking sharp there in 5th place on the road for Sports Systems Mountaintop Cycling. He doesn't look like he's been off the front the whole time at all. We're now at the 10K North Trailhead. And that means that, ladies and gentlemen, we're now 10,000 feet above sea level. As the just expansive views to the west of the Estancia Valley and all of eastern New Mexico open up. Dr. Carey looking strong, looking like he can serve some energy, and definitely didn't hit it too hard at the bottom of this very long climb. And that's definitely a good strategy for a bigger rider to just ride conservatively, not easy, but take it like a time trial. Say, okay, this is going to take an hour. How fast can I ride for an hour? And not going into the red zone too early. And David Carey definitely doing that with plenty of energy here in these last few miles for Dr. Carey. As our beautiful Corvettes pass back into view. We'd like to thank those drivers for coming out today. Now coming into your view, a rider from the New Mexico Spokettes, New Mexico's premier women's racing team. And again, these are riders from the lower categories here, just doing their best to finish today, and that's a major accomplishment. So really, perhaps the surprise of today, Justin Lau not having a great day out here at the Sandia Crest Road Race, last year's winner, and 4th place just within the last month at Collegiate National Championships. So definitely riding well this year, but today wasn't his day. Our 2 leaders are going to be Mark Osmondstadt from Arizona, winner of last year's Tour of Los Alamos, and Kip Taylor from New Mexico. These riders are still from the lower categories, but the next rider we'll pass will be Fortunato Ferrara. Fortunato in 4th place on the road. 2nd place at this race last year, winner of the Adoption Exchange Classic back in April. Fortunato Ferrara riding to an excellent 4th place on the road, giving all he's got on that beautiful Scott Road Machine, winner of the Adoption Exchange Classic and the top New Mexican finisher. Right around the bend. Fortunato Ferrara in 4th place. We're about to catch the 3rd place at Ned Overend. Ned Overend, 1990 World Mountain Bike Champion, racing for Team Specialized. We're in the last 1,000 meters of the race, and we're going to do everything we can to get up to the leaders. And we're going to have to apologize if we missed it. The finish line kind of snuck up on us. We're at 400 meters. And I see the figure of Mark Osmondstadt in green and white. I do not see Kip Taylor. And ladies and gentlemen, Kip Taylor will be the winner of the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race as Osmond stamps on his pedals and crosses the line. Kip Taylor is going to win it by just about 10 meters. We're sorry we don't have it on camera. The finish line snuck up on us. We were expecting it to be farther up the road, but we were able to see it from the front seat. And Kip Taylor with high fives all around, winning by just about 10 meters. And if we can pull in front and get the aftermath, what a fantastic finish. We were able to see it from the car. Kip Taylor, winner of the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race for Sport Systems. Mark Osmondstow with a close second place. Yeah, probably. All right, we'll be right back with an interview of our top two finishers. You're watching ProView Network's coverage of the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race. It's a great place to be seen. Chad Patterson here for ProView Networks. I'm with Kip Taylor, who just won the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race, brought to you by Sports Systems. So Kip Taylor, last week you won the Iron Horse Road Race, and this week you win the Sandia Crest Road Race. How do you feel, man?
I'm just pretty pumped right now. Can't lie, feeling pretty good. Freaking hard race. I was just on Mark Osmondsted's wheel for like the last half of the climb.
We got most of it, man.
Yeah.
We got most of it. It was fantastic. So down at the bottom, you had Dr. Carey up the road for the whole race. So how much did that mean to this win? How much did he help you win?
It was awesome. I mean, he took off, which made our job easy. The other teams just had to do the work. And for a while there, I thought Dave was going to stay away. He had, what, 8 minutes on us or something?
He's coming right up. He looks fresh. He's going to get a top 10 finish here in a few minutes.
Yeah, so that was awesome. I mean, it was win-win for our team. And when we started the climb, it quickly became myself, Fortunato, Mark, and Deadly Medley. And we just punched it, and just came back with the results for our team, which is great. I'm all pumped up, man.
So as a former cross-country runner and now a cyclist, what's it like to be in a race and look over and say, that's the first mountain bike world champion ever?
Yeah.
Net over in.
Oh, I know. It's really quite a special, fortunate feeling. And the name of the game is pain, whether you're running or cycling. And so, I mean, that's just what it comes down to. And again, you start getting those doubts in your head where you're saying, I can't keep this pace up, I can't go with this guy. And you just got to listen to that and not push it away, just work with it. And just stay on that guy's wheel as long as you can and just believe in yourself.
Well, you definitely did that today. It's a fantastic win. Now, winning Iron Horse, winning Sandia Crest. Now, there's another cross-country runner who switched over to cycling named Matt Boucher, who's now racing for Radio Shack.
Yeah.
Now, what's next for Kip Taylor?
You know, I'm just trying to live the dream right now. I love cycling. I got a great wife. I got a great career, and I'm just happy to be out here. And if the stars align and an opportunity comes its way, I'm not going to turn it down. So, it's just fun to be out here, fun to race with these guys. It's a great crowd. Great sport.
Well, congratulations, Kip Taylor. You're the winner of the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race, brought to you by Sports Systems.
Thanks, Chad.
You bet.
Right on.
Chad Patterson here for ProView Networks, bringing you the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race. I'm here with Ned Overend, the first world mountain bike champion in 1990. Now, Ned, you retired in 1996, and since then you've been two-time world Xterra champion. You've been Colorado State champion, and now 56 years old, third place in the Sandia Crest Road Race. How do you feel?
It feels good to come in third here, mainly because I was going through some pain out there and I thought it was going to be a lot worse. Those two guys were off the front, I didn't think we were going to catch them. And then I was in trouble when there were still 5 guys in the group, but fortunately there were some other guys who were in worse trouble than me.
Yes, there were. And 56 years old. So racing in Albuquerque, you've done this race before. You've raced in New Mexico a lot. What does it mean to be for the relationship with Colorado, Durango, and New Mexico to be able to come down and do these races and for us to be able to come up there? What does that mean to sports cycling?
Albuquerque's got a lot of history. I mean, I raced road before I raced mountain bike. So in the mid-'80s, I did this road race a couple times. It might have been a little different route. As a matter of fact, I saw Todd Gugulski at the start line. So me and him had some battles on this course back in the mid-'80s, maybe even like '84. So a lot of history here. They got a lot of great races, road and mountain. Yeah, Dave!
Good job, Dave!
Well, Ned Overend, thank you for representing Specialized and representing the sport for, 40 years nearly?
No, not 40. I am 57, though, not 56.
Oh, okay.
Although I feel 56.
All right. Well, I would feel 156 if I rode all the way to the top. But a great ride today, great third place. Ned Overend, the third place at the 44th Sandia Crest Road Race.